Al-Muqaddimah, The Introduction to History and Sociology by Ibn Khaldun. Part 9. On Earning and Livelihood. On livelihood and its obligation from earnings and crafts, and what circumstances may arise in all of that. Chapter 1. The reality of sustenance and earnings, and their explanation, and that earnings are the value of human actions. Know that man is naturally in need of what sustains him and provides for him in his various states and stages from the moment of his emergence to his maturity and old age, and that God is the rich, while you are the poor. And God Almighty created everything in the world for man and bestowed it upon him in many verses of his book, saying, He created for you what is in the heavens and what is in the earth, all of it. He has subjected the sea for you, and he has subjected the ships for you, and he has subjected the livestock for you. There are many examples of this. The hand of man is extended over the world, and all that is in it, by what God has granted him of stewardship. And the hands of humans are spread out, sharing in that. What one hand has obtained is withheld from the other, except for compensation. So, whenever a person is able to rise above weakness, he strives to acquire a livelihood, to spend what God has given him in fulfilling his needs and necessities by paying compensations for them. God Almighty said, So seek the provision from Allah, and this may be obtained without effort, like beneficial rain for agriculture and similar things. However, it is only a means of assistance, and there must be effort alongside it for it to be his. Those earnings become a livelihood if they are sufficient for necessity and need, and they become wealth if they exceed that. Then, if what is obtained or acquired benefits the servant and he reaps its fruits by spending it on his interests and needs, it is called provision. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, You only have from your wealth what you have eaten and consumed, or what you have worn and worn out, or what you have given in charity and spent. If it does not benefit him in any of his interests or needs, it is not called provision in relation to the owner, and what is owned by the servant at that time through his effort and ability is called earnings. This is similar to inheritance, which is called earnings in relation to the owner, and is not called provision, since it does not yield any benefit, while in relation to the heirs, when they benefit from it, it is called provision. This is the true meaning of provision, according to the people of the Sunnah, and the Mu'tazila have stipulated that for it to be called provision, it must be such that it can be owned, and what cannot be owned according to them is not called provision. They excluded usurped property and all that is forbidden from being called provision. And God Almighty provides for the usurper, the oppressor, the believer, and the disbeliever by his mercy and guidance to whomever he wills. They have arguments for this, but this is not the place to elaborate on them. Then know that earning is only through striving for acquisition and aiming for attainment. Thus, there must be effort and work in provision, even in its consumption, and seeking it from its various sources. God Almighty said, So seek the provision from Allah, and striving towards it is only by God's decree and inspiration. All is from God. Therefore, human actions are necessary in every acquired and owned thing. Because if it is a work by itself, like crafts, it is evident that it is obtained from animals, plants, and minerals. There must be human work in it, as you see. Otherwise, it would not be obtained, and no benefit would come from it. Then, God Almighty created the two metallic stones of gold and silver as a value for every owned thing, and they are the reserves and wealth for the people of the world in general. And if one acquires something other than them at times, it is only for the purpose of obtaining them through what is found in other markets that are distant from them. They are the source of earnings, wealth, and reserves. Once all this is established, know that what benefits a person, and he acquires from wealth. If it is from crafts, the benefit obtained from it is the value of his work, and this is the aim of wealth, since there is nothing but work, and it is not intended by itself for wealth. And it may be that with some crafts there are others, such as trade and weaving, along with wood and spinning, but the work in them is more, so their value is greater. And if it is from non-crafts, the value of that benefit and possession must include the value of the work that was done, for without the work, its possession would not have been achieved. The consideration of work may be apparent in many of them, giving it a share of the value, whether large or small. The consideration of work may be hidden, as in the prices of food among people, for the consideration of work and expenses is noted in the prices of grains, as we have mentioned, but it is hidden in the regions where the cultivation is treated and its expenses are managed in a customary manner, so only a few of the cultivators are aware of it. It has become clear that the benefits and earnings, all or most of them, are indeed the values of human work, and it has become clear what is meant by sustenance, which is that which is benefited from. The meaning of earning and sustenance has become clear, and their definitions have been explained. Know that when work is lost or diminished due to a decline in civilization, God permits the reduction of sustenance. Do you not see how in the few inhabited cities, sustenance and earnings decrease or are lost due to the scarcity of human activities? Similarly, in cities where civilization is more developed, their inhabitants are in better conditions and greater luxury, as we have mentioned before. From this perspective, the common people say in the regions that when their civilization declines, their sustenance has gone, to the extent that rivers and springs cease to flow in the desert, because the flow of springs is dependent on the irrigation and rainfall that come from human activity, just like the situation with the udders of livestock. If there is no irrigation or rainfall, they dry up completely, just as the udder dries up if it is not milked. Look at the regions where springs were maintained during their prosperous days, then when ruin befalls them, how their waters recede entirely, as if they never existed. And God has decreed the night and the day. Chapter 2. On the aspects of livelihood, its types, and its schools of thought. Know that livelihood is the pursuit of sustenance and the effort to obtain it, and it is a part of living. It is as if, since life cannot be achieved except through this, it has been made a subject in an exaggerated manner. Then, obtaining and earning sustenance can be through taking it from the hands of others and seizing it by force according to a common law, which is called extortion and taxation. Or it can be from wild animals by hunting and capturing them by throwing from land or sea, which is called hunting. Or it can be from domesticated animals by extracting their surplus that is used among people for their benefits, such as milk from livestock, silk from silkworms, and honey from bees. Or it can be from plants in agriculture and trees, by tending to them and preparing them to extract their fruits, and all of this is called farming. Or it can be from human labor, either in specific materials, which are called crafts, such as writing, trade, sewing, weaving, and horsemanship, and similar activities, or in unspecified materials, which are all professions and transactions. Or it can be from goods, and preparing them for exchanges, either by monopolizing them in the countries and hoarding them, or by anticipating market exchanges. This is called trade. These are the aspects and types of livelihood, and this is the meaning of what the scholars of literature and wisdom, like Al-Hariri and others, have mentioned, as they said, livelihood is governance, trade, farming, and craftsmanship. As for governance, it is not a natural method for livelihood, so there is no need to mention it, and some of the conditions of royal taxation and its people have been discussed in the second chapter. As for farming, craftsmanship, and trade, they are natural aspects of livelihood. Farming is inherently prior to all of them, as it is simple and natural, requiring no contemplation or knowledge, and thus it is attributed in creation to Adam, the father of mankind, as he is its teacher and caretaker, indicating that it is the oldest form of livelihood and most suitable to nature. As for crafts, they are secondary and later than farming, because they are complex and scientific, requiring thought and consideration, and this is often found only among urban dwellers, who are later than the nomads. From this meaning, it is attributed to Idris, the second father of creation, as he is the one who derived it for those who came after him from mankind, through revelation from God Almighty. As for trade, although it is natural in earning, most of its methods and approaches are merely tricks to obtain the difference between the two values in buying and selling to gain profit from that surplus. Therefore, the law permits earning from it as it is while similar to gambling, but it is not taking someone else's money for free, which is why it is distinguished by legality. And God knows best. Chapter 3. Service is not natural. Know that the Sultan must take service in all aspects of governance and kingship, which includes soldiers, police, and clerks. He should suffice in each area with those who are reliable, even if they are few, for their negligence is more harmful than beneficial. So understand this, and adopt it as a principle in sufficiency of service, and that He, the Exalted and Almighty, is capable of all things. Chapter 4. Seeking wealth from buried treasures and riches is not a natural livelihood. Know that many of the weak-minded in the cities are keen to extract money from beneath the earth and seek to profit from it. They believe that the wealth of past nations is all stored underground, sealed with magical talismans. The seal can only be broken by someone who has discovered the knowledge and has brought forth the incense, prayers, and offerings that unlock it. The people of the cities in Africa believe that the Franks who were there before Islam buried their money in the same way and entrusted it to the books until they find a way to extract it. The people of the cities in the East see the same regarding the Copts, Romans, and Persians. They pass on stories that resemble the tales of myths, where some seekers end up digging in places where the money is said to be, without knowing its talisman or having any expertise, only to find it empty or infested with worms. Or they might see the money and jewels placed there, guarded by sentinels with drawn swords. Or the ground might tremble beneath them, leading them to think it is a collapse, or similar nonsense. We find many of the Berber seekers in the Maghreb unable to earn a natural livelihood and its causes, approaching the people of the world with tattered papers, either with foreign scripts or what they claim to have translated from the scripts of the buried treasures, providing signs of them in their locations, seeking sustenance from them by prompting them to dig and search, misleading them into thinking that their request for assistance stems from a desire for prestige in such matters from the rulers and their punishments. And perhaps there is someone who knows their wealth in it and takes care of their sustenance from the public treasury. All of this falls under the domain of governance and its livelihood, as they all fall under the rule of governance, and the Supreme King is the source of their streams. As for the lesser services, the reason is that most of the affluent tend to avoid directly attending to their needs, or are incapable of doing so due to their upbringing in a life of luxury and indulgence, so they appoint someone to take care of that for them and pay them a wage from their wealth. This situation is not commendable according to the natural masculinity of man, as trusting everyone is a form of incapacity, and because it increases responsibilities and expenses, indicating weakness and ambiguity that should be avoided in the principles of masculinity. However, habits can transform a person's nature into what is familiar. He is a product of his habits, not of his lineage. Nevertheless, the servant who is relied upon and trusted for his singing is like a lost one, as the servant fulfilling this role falls into 4 categories. Either he is competent in his duties, but not trustworthy in what he produces, or the opposite, meaning he is neither competent in his duties nor trustworthy in what he produces, or he is competent in one aspect only, such as being competent but untrustworthy, or trustworthy but incompetent. As for the first type, the competent and trustworthy one, no one can employ him in any way, as his competence and trustworthiness make him independent of those of lower ranks, and he looks down upon the mere reward of service due to his ability to achieve more than that. Thus, only princes of high status employ him due to the general need for status. As for the second type, who is neither competent nor trustworthy, it is not advisable for a rational person to employ him, as he would harm his employer in both aspects, causing loss due to lack of skill at times and losing money through betrayal at others. He is, in any case, a burden on his master. Therefore, no one hopes to employ these 2 types, and only the use of the other 2 types remains, reliable but uninformed, and informed but unreliable, and people have 2 opinions on how to weigh between them, and each of the 2 opinions has its justification. However, the informed one, even if it is unreliable, is preferable because it protects against loss and attempts to guard against betrayal to the best of its ability. As for some, they engage in rare or strange magical practices to deceive others into believing what remains of their claims, while being far removed from magic and its methods. Many of the weak-minded become obsessed with gathering hands for digging and hiding in the darkness of night out of fear of watchers and the eyes of the authorities. If they find nothing, they attribute that to ignorance of the talisman that sealed that wealth, deceiving themselves about their failed ambitions. What often drives this, in addition to weak-mindedness, is the inability to seek a livelihood through natural means of earning from trade, agriculture, and crafts, leading them to seek it through deviant means and outside the natural course, out of incapacity to strive for earnings and a reliance on obtaining sustenance without effort or toil in acquiring it. They do not realize that by pursuing it in this way, they are subjecting themselves to greater toil and hardships than before and exposing themselves to the risk of penalties. Moreover, often this is driven by excessive luxury and its returns, which exceed reasonable limits, leading to a shortfall in the means of earning and their methods, which do not meet their demands. If he is unable to earn through the natural course, he finds no refuge in himself except for wishing for the existence of great wealth, suddenly without effort, to fulfill for him the returns he obtained in its captivity. He strives to seek that, and exerts his effort in it. Therefore, most of those you see eager for that are the affluent among the people of the state and the inhabitants of the cities with abundant luxury, like Egypt and similar places. We find many of them enamored with seeking and acquiring it, and inquiring from travellers about its anomalies, just as they are keen on alchemy. Thus, I have been informed about the people of Egypt in discussions with those they meet from the students of the Maghreb, hoping they might discover a treasure or a hidden wealth. They also increase their search for water diversions, as they believe that most of this buried wealth is in the Nile's channels, and that it is the greatest cover for treasures or hoards in those regions. The owners of those fabricated records deceive them under the pretext of the Nile's flow, hiding behind lies until they secure their livelihood. Consequently, those who hear this from them are keen on draining water through magical works to obtain their desires, with this being a legacy of magic in that region from their ancestors. Their magical knowledge and its effects remain in their land, in the wilderness, and elsewhere. The story of Pharaoh's magicians is a testament to their specialization in this. The people of the Maghreb have transmitted a poem attributed to the sages of the East, which provides the method of working with water diversion through magical craft as seen in it, and it is as follows. O seeker of secrets in divination, listen to the words of truth from an expert. Disregard what they have classified, for it is written with falsehood and arrogance. Listen to the truth of my words and my advice, if you are among those who do not see through deception. If you wish to delve into the well that has confused imaginations in planning, shape it like your image that you have stopped, and the head is that of a lion cub in divination. His hands are grasping the rope that pulls from the depths of the well, and in his chest is a letter as I have seen it, the number of divorces. Beware of repetition. He treads on the letters without touching, the walk of the wise and clever. And around everything is a circular line. Its square is preferable to the rounding. Sacrifice a bird upon it and strike it, and after the sacrifice, approach it with incense of sandalwood, frankincense, myrrh, and costus, and dress it in a silk garment of red or yellow, with no blue or green in it, nor any disturbance, and tie it with white or red woolen threads of pure dye. The rising sign is the lion that they have indicated, and the beginning of the month is not illuminated. The full moon is connected to the fortune of Mercury, on a Saturday, at the hour of planning. It means that the feet are like walking on them, and I believe that this poem is from the deceptions of the deluded, for they have strange states and odd terminologies. The deception and lies lead them to inhabit famous houses and known places for such things, and they dig holes and place the artifacts in them, along with the testimonies they write in their sheets of lies. Then they target the weak-minded with such sheets and spread rumors about the prominent figures of that house and its inhabitants, suggesting that there is a hidden treasure of wealth that cannot be quantified. They demand money to buy potions and incense to solve the mysteries, promising the appearance of the testimonies they have prepared there themselves, and from their actions, one is led to what they see of that, having been deceived and misled by someone who is unaware. Among them, there is a terminology in their speech that they use to confuse others, making it obscure during their discussions about the holes, incense, and the slaughter of animals, and similar matters. As for the truth of the matter, there is no basis for it in knowledge or news. Know that treasures, even if they exist, are rare and occur by chance. not by intent to seek them out. And this is not a matter that becomes widespread to the extent that people bury their money underground and seal it with talismans, neither in the past nor in the present. The treasure mentioned in the Hadith and imposed by the jurists, which is the buried wealth of the pre-Islamic era, can only be found by chance and agreement, not by intention and search. Moreover, whoever hoards their wealth and seals it with magical practices has gone to great lengths to conceal it. How then can evidence and signs be set up for those who seek it? And how can this be recorded in documents so that the people of cities and regions become aware of their hidden treasures? This contradicts the intention of concealment. The actions of rational beings must necessarily be for a specific purpose of benefit. Those who hoard wealth do so for their children, relatives, or those they favor. However, to intend to conceal it entirely from everyone, and only for calamity and destruction, or for those who do not know it at all from the nations that will come, this is not among the purposes of rational beings in any way. As for their saying, "Where are the wealth of the nations before us, and what is known about it?" Of abundance and plenty, know that wealth in gold, silver, jewels and goods is merely minerals and earnings like iron, copper, lead, and other real estate and minerals. Civilization reveals it through human actions, and either increases or decreases it, and what exists in the hands of people is transmitted and inherited, and it may be transferred from one region to another, and from one state to another, according to its purposes. And the civilization that calls for it, if the wealth decreases in Morocco and Africa, it does not decrease in the lands of the Slavs and the Franks. And if it decreases in Egypt and the Levant, it does not decrease in India and China. It is merely the tools and gains and civilization that are provided or diminished, although the minerals are subject to calamity, just like all other existences, and calamity hastens to pearls and gems more than it does to others. Likewise, gold, silver, copper, iron, lead, and tin are subject to calamity and destruction that can take away their essence in a short time. As for what has happened in Egypt regarding the treasures and riches, the reason is that Egypt has been under the rule of the Copts for thousands of years or more, and their dead were buried with their possessions of gold, silver, gems, and pearls, according to the customs of those who preceded them in power. When the Coptic state ended and the Persians took over their land, they dug into their graves and uncovered what cannot be described, like the pyramids from the graves of kings and others. The Greeks did the same afterward, and their graves became a source of such treasures to this day. Many times buried treasures are discovered there. As for what they bury of their wealth, or what they honor their dead with in burial, such as containers and coffins made of gold and silver prepared for that purpose, the graves of the Copts have become, for thousands of years, a place of expectation for the existence of such items within them. Therefore, the people of Egypt have been concerned with searching for these treasures to find and extract them. Even when taxes were imposed on various goods at the end of the state, they were imposed on those seeking these treasures. A tax was imposed on those who engage in such foolishness and obsessions, and thus those with ambitions found a pretext to expose it and to extract it, but they only achieved disappointment in all their endeavors. We seek refuge in God from loss. Whoever experiences this kind of obsession and is afflicted by it should seek refuge in God from incapacity and laziness in earning his livelihood, just as the messenger of God, peace be upon him, sought refuge from that. He should turn away from the paths of Satan and his whispers, and not be preoccupied with the impossibilities and fabrications of tales, and God provides for whom he wills without account. Chapter 5. On the utility of prestige for wealth. The reason is that we find the owner of wealth and influence in all types of livelihood to be more affluent and wealthy than one who lacks status. The reason for this is that the person of status is served by works that are done to draw closer to him in the pursuit of favor and need for his status, so people assist him with their work in all his needs, whether essential, necessary, or luxury. Thus, the value of all those works comes from his earnings, and all his livelihoods are provided through the efforts of others without compensation, so the value of those works accumulates for him. He is surrounded by values of works he earns, and other values that necessity compels him to expend, which accumulate for him. The works available to the person of status are numerous, leading to wealth in a short time, and he becomes increasingly affluent and wealthy over the days. For this reason, leadership is one of the causes of livelihood, as we have mentioned, while one who completely lacks status, even if he is wealthy, will only be as affluent as his wealth allows and in proportion to his efforts, and these are mostly the merchants. And for this reason, you find that the people of ignorance are much more at ease. One evidence of this is that we do not find many scholars and people of religion and worship, when they become well known, to have good assumptions about them, and the public believes in God's treatment of them by providing for them. Thus, people sincerely assist them in their worldly affairs and endeavors, and wealth quickly comes to them, making them affluent without possessing any wealth except what they gain from the value of the deeds that people have helped them with. We have seen many examples of this in cities and towns. In the countryside, people strive for them in farming and trade, while they themselves remain at home, not leaving their place, and their wealth grows, their earnings increase, and the rich become established without effort. Those who do not realize this secret in their wealth and the reasons for their richness and ease are amazed, and God Almighty provides for whom He wills without account. Chapter 6. That happiness and gain are often attained by those who are submissive and flattering, and that this trait is one of the causes of happiness. It has been previously established that the earnings that humans benefit from are indeed the values of their work, and if someone were to completely cease working, they would be entirely devoid of earnings. The value of a person is determined by the extent of their work, their honor among tasks, and the necessity of people for them. Accordingly, their earnings will grow or diminish. We have previously indicated that prestige brings wealth due to the closeness it creates between people and their work and money in repelling harm and attracting benefits. What they offer in terms of work or money serves as compensation for what they gain through prestige in terms of interests, whether beneficial or harmful. These actions become part of their earnings, and their values turn into money and wealth, allowing them to benefit from richness and prosperity in the near future. Furthermore, prestige is distributed among people and arranged in layers, culminating at the top with kings who have no higher authority above them, and at the bottom with those who possess neither harm nor benefit among their peers. Between these extremes are various classes, a manifestation of God's wisdom in His creation, which organizes their livelihoods, facilitates their interests, and ensures their survival, as the human species cannot exist and persist without cooperation among its members for their mutual benefits. It has been established that one of them cannot fully exist, and even if this is rare in a hypothetical scenario, their survival is not sustainable. Then this cooperation only occurs through coercion due to their ignorance, for the most part, of the interests of the species, and because they have been given the choice, and that their actions are only produced through thought and deliberation, not by nature. And one may refrain from cooperation, thus it becomes necessary to compel them to do so. Therefore, there must be someone to coerce the members of the species for their own interests, so that divine wisdom may be fulfilled in the survival of this species. This is the meaning of His saying, "And we raised some of them above others in degrees, so that some of them may take others in service, and the mercy of your Lord is better than what they gather." It has become clear that authority is the power that compels humans to act towards those under their control from their own kind, through permission and prohibition, and domination through force and superiority, to drive them to repel their harms and attract their benefits justly according to the laws and governance, and towards their other purposes. However, the first is the primary aim in divine care by itself, while the second is included in it incidentally, like other evils that fall under divine decree, because the existence of much good may not be achieved without the existence of a little evil for the sake of the materials. Thus, good is not lost by that, but rather it occurs alongside the little evil it entails. This is the meaning of the occurrence of injustice in creation, so understand. Then, each layer of the inhabitants of civilization from a city or region has power over those below it, and each one of the lower layer derives from the status of the people in the layer above it. Its gain increases in managing those under its authority according to how much it benefits from them, and status is involved in all aspects of livelihood, expanding and contracting according to the layer and stage of its possessor. If the status is broad, the gain arising from it will be so as well. If it is narrow and limited, then so will be the gain. A person without status, even if they have wealth, will only have prosperity commensurate with their work or wealth, and the ratio of their efforts going and returning in its growth is like that of most merchants and farmers in general, as well as craftsmen, when they lose status and rely solely on the benefits of their crafts. They tend to fall into poverty and neediness most of the time, and wealth does not come to them quickly. Rather, they scrape by and fend off the necessity of poverty. Once this is established, and that status is derivative, and that happiness and goodness are linked to its attainment, it is understood that its provision and benefit are among the greatest and most significant blessings, and that the one who provides it is among the noblest of benefactors. It is only given to those under their authority, and its provision requires a high hand and dignity, so that the seeker and aspirant must submit and flatter, as is the case when asking those in power and kings. Otherwise, obtaining it becomes difficult. Therefore, we say that submission and flattery are among the reasons for attaining this status that leads to happiness and gain, and that most of the wealthy and happy people achieve this through flattery. Thus, we find many who behave with arrogance and pride do not attain the desired status, limiting their earnings to their work and falling into poverty and neediness. Know that this arrogance and pride are among the blameworthy traits that arise from the illusion of perfection, believing that people need their knowledge or skills, like the deeply knowledgeable scholar, the skilled writer, or the eloquent poet. Every proficient person in their craft imagines that people are in need of what they possess, which leads to their arrogance over others. Similarly, those who boast of their lineage, claiming descent from a king or a famous scholar, or someone perfect, express this through what they have seen or heard from their ancestors in the city, believing they deserve such status due to their kinship and inheritance. They cling to the non-existent in the present, just as those skilled in cunning, insight, and experience may imagine a perfection in themselves and a need for their presence. You will find all these types are arrogant, refusing to submit to those of status, and not flattering those above them, belittling others due to their belief in their superiority over people. One of them may refuse to submit even to a king, considering it a humiliation, disgrace, and folly. People judge others based on how they perceive themselves, and harbor resentment towards those who fall short in any way they imagine. They may become burdened with worries and sorrows due to others' shortcomings, and continue to suffer greatly from demanding their rights, or from others' refusal to grant them. They may also face disdain from people because of the inherent nature of humans to seek divinity. Rarely does anyone fully submit to another in perfection and superiority, unless it is through some form of oppression, dominance, or superiority. All of this is within the realm of status. When a person with this trait loses their status, which is indeed lost to them, as you can see, they become despised by people due to this superiority and do not receive any kindness from them. They lose status among those of a higher class because of the disdain and the resulting withdrawal from maintaining relationships and visiting their homes, leading to a deterioration of their livelihood, leaving them in poverty or slightly above it. As for wealth, it does not come to them at all. Hence, it has become well known among people that the one who is complete in knowledge is deprived of fortune, and that they have been held accountable for the knowledge they have received, which has been taken from their fortune, and this is its meaning. Whoever is created for something is facilitated in it, and God is the determiner. There is no Lord besides him. And indeed, in states, there occurs a strike in the ranks of the people of character, and many lowly individuals rise while many high-ranking individuals fall because of this. When states reach their peak of dominance and control, the essence of kingship becomes isolated from them, and those other than them despair of it. They have only fallen into ranks below that of kingship, under the authority of the Sultan, as if they are his subjects. If the state persists and the king rises, then all who belong to his service and draw near to him with advice become equal in status before the Sultan. You find many commoners striving to get close to the Sultan through their diligence and advice, flattering him with various forms of service, and relying on great submission and sycophancy towards him, his entourage, and his kin, until they establish their position among them, and the Sultan includes them in his circle, thus gaining a great share of happiness and becoming part of the state and its emerging members, who have subdued their grudges and prepared their surroundings, deceived by what their forefathers had in that regard, which their souls did not allow them to offer to the Sultan. They count on his effects and run in the race of the state because of it, which makes the Sultan despise them and distance himself from them. He inclines towards these sycophants who do not regard the past or seek to elevate themselves. Their habit is merely submission to him, flattery, and working towards his goals whenever he approaches them. Thus their prestige expands, their ranks rise, and attention and thoughts turn towards them due to what they gain from the Sultan and their standing with him. Meanwhile, the emerging members of the state, in their elevation and reliance on the past, find that this only distances them further from the Sultan, inciting his disdain and preference for these sycophants over them until the state perishes. This is a natural matter in states, and thus the situation of sycophants often arises. And God, the exalted and almighty, knows best, and to him belongs success. There is no Lord but him. Chapter 7. Those who are responsible for religious matters such as judiciary, fatwa, teaching, imamat, preaching, and calling to prayer, among others, do not usually accumulate great wealth. The reason for this is that gain, as we have presented, is the value of works, and they vary according to the need for them. If the works are necessary in the general construction of society, their value is greater, and the need for them is more intense. The people of these religious crafts are not generally needed by all of creation. Rather, only the special individuals who are devoted to their religion require what they have. And if there is a need for fatwas and judgments in disputes, it is not out of necessity and generality, so most of the time, reliance on these individuals can be dispensed with. The state official is concerned with holding their ceremonies based on what he has gained from considering their interests, so he allocates to them a share of sustenance according to their needs, in the manner we have outlined. He does not equate them with the powerful or with those engaged in crafts in terms of religion and formalities, but he distributes according to the general need and the necessity of the inhabitants, so their division is only a small one. They are also, due to the nobility of their goods, esteemed by people and in their own eyes, so they do not submit to the influential in order to gain a share that would provide them with sustenance, nor do they have the time for that due to their engagement with these noble goods that require both mental and physical effort. In fact, they cannot afford to demean themselves for the worldly due to the nobility of their goods. Thus they are distanced from that, which is why their wealth is generally not great. I have consulted some virtuous individuals who denied this to me, and I came across torn papers from the accounts of the Diwan at the house of Al-Mamun, which included much of the income and expenses. Among what I reviewed were the stipends of the judges, imams, and callers to prayer. I confirmed the accuracy of what I said and returned to it, and we were astonished by God's secrets in his creation and his wisdom in his realms. And God is the Creator, the Omnipotent. There is no Lord besides him. Chapter 8. On agriculture as a livelihood for the humble and the healthy among the nomads. This is because it is original in nature and simple in its approach, and therefore you will not find it adopted by most of the urban dwellers or the affluent. Its adopter is characterized by humiliation. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said when he saw the coinage in some of the houses of the Ansar, "No house of a people has entered, except that humiliation has entered it." And Al-Bukhari attributed it to the excessive engagement in it. He translated it under the chapter warning against the consequences of engaging in the farming tool, or exceeding the limit that was commanded. The reason for this, and God knows best, is the burdens that follow it, leading to control and dominance, making the debtor humiliated and miserable due to the hands of oppression and overreach. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The hour will not come until zakat becomes a burden," indicating the oppressive kingship that dominates people, which comes with tyranny and the neglect of God's rights in wealth, considering all rights as burdens for kings and states. And God is capable of what he wills. And God, the exalted and almighty knows best, and to him belongs success. Chapter 9. On the meaning of trade, its doctrines, and its types. Know that trade is an attempt to earn by growing wealth through buying goods at a low price and selling them at a high price, whether the goods are flour, crops, animals, or fabric. That growing amount is called profit. The attempt to achieve that profit can either be by hoarding the goods and waiting for the market to shift from low to high prices, thus increasing his profit, or by transporting them to another country where those goods are sold for more than the country where he bought them, thereby increasing his profit. Therefore, some elder traders said to those seeking to understand the essence of trade, "I can explain it to you in 2 words: buy cheap and sell dear." Thus, trade has been indicated by him in reference to the meaning we have established. And God, the exalted and almighty, knows best, and he is the one who grants success. There is no Lord besides him. Chapter 10. In which types of people should engage in trade, and which ones should avoid it. We have established that the meaning of trade is the growth of wealth by purchasing goods and attempting to sell them for more than the purchase price, either by waiting for market fluctuations, or transporting them to a place where they are more expensive, or selling them at a higher price on credit. This profit, in relation to the principal amount, is modest, but if the capital is substantial, the profit increases because a small percentage of a large amount is significant. It is essential in this pursuit of growth, which is profit, for this money to be in the hands of sellers for buying and selling goods. Their dealings in collecting their prices are crucial. However, the number of fair individuals is few, leading to deceit and unfair practices that harm the goods and to delays in payments that negatively impact profits, such as hindering attempts during that period and thus stunting growth. There is also denial and rejection that can erase the principal amount if it is not documented with a contract and witnesses, and the wealth of judges in this matter is limited because judgment is based on appearances. The merchant suffers from difficult conditions. He can hardly obtain that trivial profit except with great effort and hardship, or he does not obtain it at all, or his capital diminishes. If he is bold in disputes, perceptive in calculations, and fiercely argumentative, being daring with judges, this will bring him closer to fairness through his boldness and arguments. Otherwise, he must have a status that shields him, granting him respect among sellers and compelling judges to be fair with him in his dealings, thus achieving fairness in his wealth willingly in the first case and unwillingly in the second. As for one who lacks courage and initiative and is without status among judges, he should avoid engaging in trade, as it exposes his wealth to loss and destruction, making him prey for sellers, and he is unlikely to receive justice from them. The majority of people, especially the common folk and sellers, are greedy for what others possess and are eager to seize it. Were it not for the restraint of laws, people's wealth would become plundered, and were it not for God's intervention among people, the earth would be corrupted. But God is gracious to the worlds. Chapter 11. On the creation of merchants being derived from the creation of nobles and kings. This is because merchants, in most of their situations, only deal with buying and selling, and it is necessary to engage in bargaining. If they limit themselves to it, they confine themselves to its nature, which, I mean the nature of bargaining, is far from the nobility that kings and nobles possess. As for if they degrade their character by following the behaviors of the lower class, such as quarreling, cheating, and deception, and by maintaining false oaths regarding prices, both in giving and receiving, such a character is more likely to be in a state of utmost humiliation, as is well known. Therefore, you find leaders avoiding engaging in this profession due to what is gained from this character. There may be some among them who escape this character and avoid it for the honor of themselves and the dignity of their majesty, but this is rare among existence. And God guides whom he wills by his grace and generosity, and he is the Lord of the first and the last. Chapter 12. On the merchant's transport of goods. The insightful merchant in trade only transports goods that are needed by both the rich and the poor, as well as by the rulers and the common people, for this ensures the sale of his goods. However, if he restricts his transport to what only some need, it may become difficult to sell his goods when that specific group lacks the means to buy due to some circumstances, leading to a stagnation in his market and a loss of profits. Similarly, when transporting necessary goods, he should focus on the average quality of each type, as the high-end goods are only sought after by the wealthy and the elite, who are fewer in number. People generally have a common need for the average quality of each type, so he should strive for that, as it determines whether his goods will sell or stagnate. Additionally, transporting goods from distant places or through dangerous routes is often more beneficial for merchants, yielding greater profits and ensuring market stability, because the transported goods are scarce due to their distance or the high risk involved in their journey, leading to fewer carriers and a rarity in their availability, which drives up their prices. Conversely, if the country is close and the route is safe, there will be many carriers, leading to an abundance and a decrease in prices. This is why merchants who venture into the lands of Sudan are among the wealthiest, due to the long and difficult journey and the treacherous desert that poses risks of fear and thirst, where water is only found in known locations guided by experienced travelers. Only a few dare to take this risky and distant route, resulting in the goods from Sudan being scarce and thus expensive, and the same applies to our goods there. This increases the value of the merchant's goods through trade and attracts wealth and prosperity to them. Similarly, travelers from our lands to the east benefit from the long distance. However, those who frequently travel between nearby cities and towns find little benefit and trivial profits due to the abundance of goods and the many carriers. Indeed, God is the provider, the strong and mighty. Chapter 13. On Monopoly. It is well known among those with keen sight and experience in the cities that monopolizing grain to take advantage of times of scarcity is ominous. It leads to loss and destruction of its benefits. The reason, and God knows best, is that people, due to their need for sustenance, are compelled to spend their money on it out of necessity, which keeps their souls attached to it. This attachment of souls to what they possess has a significant secret in its negative consequences for those who take it for free, and the act that the law considers in taking people's money unjustly. Even if it is not free, souls are still attached to it due to the necessity of giving it without a valid excuse, making it akin to coercion. As for goods other than sustenance and food, there is no necessity for people to acquire them. Rather, they are driven by the pursuit of desires, so they only spend their money on them willingly and with eagerness. They do not remain attached to what they have given, which is why those known for monopolizing find the psychological forces converging on them to follow what they take from people's money, thus corrupting their profit. And God knows best. I heard a delightful story related to this from some elders of Morocco. Our teacher Abu Abdullah al-Abli told me, I was present before the judge in Fez during the reign of Sultan Abu Sa'id, who was the scholar Abu al-Hasan al-Malili, and it was suggested to him to choose some official titles for his salary. He pondered for a long time and then said, "From the tax on wine." His companions laughed and were astonished, asking him about the wisdom behind that. He said, "If all taxes are forbidden, I would choose from them a wealth that the giver's soul follows, and wine is rarely given by anyone without being joyful and pleased with its existence, without regret or attachment to it." This is a strange observation, and God Almighty knows what the hearts conceal. Chapter 14. On how price discounts are harmful to professionals with discounts. The fact is that earning a living, as we have presented, is through crafts or trade. Trade involves buying goods and commodities and storing them. One waits for market fluctuations to increase their prices, which is called profit. This leads to earning a living for those who are professionals in trade. If there is a prolonged period of low prices for a commodity or a type of food, clothing, or wealth in general, and the trader does not experience market fluctuations, the profit and growth become spoiled over that long period, and the market for that type becomes stagnant, leaving the trader with only hardship. Consequently, traders refrain from pursuing it, and their capital becomes spoiled. This can first be considered in agriculture. If the prices remain low, it negatively affects the situation of professionals in all its stages, from farming to cultivation, due to the lack of profit or its scarcity. They lose growth in their wealth, or find it in small amounts, leading them to spend on their capital, which deteriorates their conditions and leads them to poverty and need. This also affects the situation of professionals in milling, baking, and everything related to agriculture, from planting to its becoming food. Similarly, the situation of soldiers deteriorates if their provisions from the ruler depend on the farmer's crops, as their revenue from that decreases, making them unable to maintain the military service they are required to fulfill. Their conditions deteriorate as well. If there is a prolonged period of low prices for sugar or honey, everything related to it becomes spoiled, and professionals refrain from trading in it. The same applies to clothing if low prices persist. Excessive low prices harm the livelihoods of professionals in that cheap category, as does excessive high pricing. The livelihood and earnings of people lie in moderation, with the swift market fluctuations and knowledge of this returning to the established customs among the people of civilization. Low prices in agriculture are praised among sales due to the general need for it and people's necessity for food, whether rich or poor. The needy among people are the majority in civilization, thus benefiting from it, and the necessity of food outweighs that of trade in this specific category. Indeed, God is the provider, the all-powerful, and God Almighty is the Lord of the great throne. Chapter 15 discusses how the creation of trade is derived from the nature of leaders and is far from nobility. We have presented in the previous chapter that the merchant is driven to endure buying and selling, seeking benefits and profits, and this necessarily involves negotiation, contention, cleverness, and engaging in disputes and arguments, which are characteristics of this profession. These traits diminish intelligence and honor and injure them, because actions inevitably leave their effects on the soul. Good deeds return with the effects of goodness and intelligence, while bad deeds and foolishness return with the opposite, becoming entrenched and established if they proceed and are repeated, and diminish the good if they are delayed, due to the negative effects they imprint on the soul, akin to the faculties arising from actions. These effects vary according to the types of merchants in their stages. Those who are of a low status, aligned with the wicked sellers who are deceitful, fraudulent, and corrupt in prices, whether in acknowledgement or denial, have their bad character more pronounced, and foolishness prevails over them, distancing them from honor and the acquisition of it in general. Otherwise, they must be influenced by negotiation and contention in their honor, and the absence of that among them in general. There exists a second type among them, as we mentioned in the previous chapter, who are shielded by status and compensated for engaging in that. They are rare and fewer than rare. This means that wealth may come to them suddenly, in an unusual manner, or be inherited from someone in their family, resulting in a fortune that enables them to connect with the people of authority and grants them prominence and fame among their contemporaries, allowing them to avoid direct involvement in such matters themselves and delegate it to their agents and attendants. The judges facilitate fairness in their rights due to the kindness and generosity they show, distancing them from those traits by avoiding the hardships of actions that necessitate them, as previously mentioned. Thus, their honor is more firmly established and further removed from such disputes, except for the effects of those actions that may seep through the veil, as they are compelled to be aware of the conditions of those agents and their companions or their opposites in what they do or know of that, though it is minimal and hardly shows its effect, and God created you and what you do. Chapter 16 on the necessity of knowledge for crafts. Know that craftsmanship is a faculty in practical intellectual matters, and being practical, it is physical and tangible. The tangible physical conditions are better and more complete when conveyed directly, because directness in tangible physical conditions provides the utmost benefit, and the faculty is a stable attribute that is acquired through the use of that action and its repetition time and again until its form is firmly established. The faculty is proportional to the origin. The transmission of direct observation is more effective and complete than the transmission of news and knowledge. the faculty obtained from news. The quality of education and the skill of the teacher determine the proficiency of the learner in the craft and the acquisition of their faculty. Moreover, crafts can be simple or complex. The simple ones are those that pertain to necessities, while the complex ones are for luxuries. The former is prioritized in education due to its simplicity and because it is related to the necessary, which has strong motivations for its transmission. Thus it comes first in education, and its teaching is therefore incomplete. Thought continues to derive its types and combinations from potentiality to actuality gradually until it is complete. This does not happen all at once, but rather over times and generations, as the transition of things from potentiality to actuality cannot occur suddenly, especially in industrial matters. Thus it requires time. Therefore, you find crafts in small towns to be incomplete, and only the simple ones exist. When their civilization increases, and the matters of luxury necessitate the use of crafts, they transition from potentiality to actuality. Crafts are also divided into those that pertain to livelihood, whether necessary or unnecessary, and those that pertain to ideas, which are the characteristics of humans in sciences, crafts, and politics. The first includes tailoring, butchery, carpentry, blacksmithing, and similar trades. The second includes bookbinding, which involves copying and preserving books, singing, poetry, teaching knowledge, and similar activities. The third includes military service and similar roles, and God knows best. Chapter 17. On the fact that crafts are only perfected by the completeness of urban civilization and its abundance. The reason for this is that people, unless urbanization is fulfilled and the city becomes civilized, are primarily concerned with the necessities of livelihood, which is obtaining food such as wheat and others. Once the city becomes civilized and the work increases, fulfilling the necessities and adding to them the surplus, it then moves towards the perfections of livelihood. Moreover, crafts and sciences are for humans in terms of their intellect, which distinguishes them from animals, and sustenance is in terms of their animalistic and nutritional needs, thus prioritizing necessity over sciences and crafts, which are secondary to the essential. The quality of crafts corresponds to the extent of urbanization, as refinement in them is only sought when the motives for luxury and wealth are available. In contrast, rural or minimal urbanization requires only simple crafts, especially those used in necessities such as carpentry, blacksmithing, tailoring, weaving, or butchering. If these exist, they are not complete or refined, but only available to the extent of necessity, as they are all means to an end, and not ends in themselves. When the sea of urbanization flourishes, and perfections are sought within it, refinement in crafts and their improvement become part of it, completing all its components, and increasing other crafts that luxury and its conditions call for, such as butchering, tanning, sewing, goldsmithing, and similar trades. These categories may reach a point where urbanization is so advanced that many perfections and refinements exist within them, becoming means of livelihood in the city for those who engage in them. Indeed, their benefit becomes one of the greatest benefits of work due to the demands of luxury in the city, such as painting, dyeing, bathing, cooking, candle making, grinding, and teaching singing and dancing, as well as drumming for entertainment. Similarly, there are scribes who engage in the craft of copying, binding, and correcting books, as this craft is indeed called for by the luxury of the city through engagement in intellectual matters and similar pursuits. It may exceed limits if urbanization goes beyond bounds, as we have heard about the people of Egypt, that among them are those who teach mute birds and domestic donkeys, and create wonders by illusion, teaching them to sing, dance, walk on threads in the air, and lift weights from animals and stones, among other crafts that do not exist with us in the Maghreb. This is because the urbanization of its cities has not reached that of Egypt and Cairo. May God sustain its urbanization with Muslims. And God is the wise, the all-knowing. The 18th chapter. How the establishment of crafts in cities is indeed based on the establishment of civilization and its long duration. The reason for this is clear, as all of these are the returns of civilization and time. The returns are only solidified by frequent repetition and the passage of time, so that the essence of it becomes established and entrenched in generations. Once the essence is firmly established, it becomes difficult to remove it. This is why we find in cities that flourished in civilization, when their development declined and diminished, remnants of these crafts remain that are not found in other newly developed cities, even if they have reached high levels of abundance and quantity. This is only because the conditions of those ancient civilizations are firmly established and entrenched over long periods, and the exchange of circumstances and their repetition, while the new ones have not yet reached their peak. This is similar to the situation in Andalusia at this time, as we find there the signs of craft still standing, and their conditions, some of which are firmly established in all that the customs of its cities call for, such as buildings, cooking, various forms of music and entertainment, instruments, strings, dancing, arranging carpets in palaces, and the good organization and arrangements in construction, crafting utensils from metals and ceramics, and all containers, as well as hosting banquets, weddings, and other crafts that luxury and its returns call for. We find them more adept at it and more knowledgeable about it. We see their crafts firmly established among them, so they have a substantial share of that and a distinguished portion among all cities, even if their development has diminished. Much of it does not equal the civilization of other lands of the enemy. This is only due to what we have presented regarding the deep-rootedness of civilization among them, stemming from the stability of the Umayyad state, and what preceded it from the Visigothic state, and what followed it from the states of the factions, and so on. Civilization reached a level there that it did not reach in any region except for what is reported from Iraq, the Levant, and Egypt as well, due to the long durations of states in those areas, which solidified crafts and perfected all their types in terms of quality and refinement. Its character remained fixed in that civilization, not departing from it until it is completely undone, just as the dye remains in the fabric once it has set. And likewise is the case with Tunisia, regarding what happened to it in terms of civilization from the Sanhaja states and the Almohads after them, and what was completed for it in that regard, from crafts in all circumstances, even if it is less than that of Andalusia. However, it is multiplied by customs that were transferred to it from Egypt due to the proximity of the distance between them. The travellers from its region to the region of Egypt frequent every year, and perhaps its people reside there for periods, transferring from their customs of luxury and their refined crafts what is well received by them. Thus, its conditions in this regard became similar to those of Egypt, as we mentioned, and to those of Andalusia, since most of its inhabitants were from eastern Andalusia at the time of the expulsion in the 7th century. And there were established conditions from that, even if its population is not suitable for that in this era. However, when a hue becomes firmly established, it rarely changes, except with the removal of its place. Likewise, we find in Kairouan, Marrakesh, and the castle of Ibn Hamad a lasting trace of that, even if all of these are today in ruins or in a state of ruin. Only the discerning among people notice it, finding in these crafts traces that indicate what was there, like the trace of the erased script in the book, and God is the Creator, the All-Knowing. Chapter 19. On the fact that crafts are only improved and increased when their demand rises. The reason for this is clear. A person does not allow their work to be done for free because it is their livelihood. There is no benefit for them in anything else throughout their life, so they only spend it on what has value in their city to gain profit. And if the craft is in demand, and there is a focus on it, then the craft is like a commodity that is sold in the market. People in the city strive to learn that craft so that it can be their means of living. If the industry is not in demand, its market will not thrive, and there will be no intention to learn it, leading to its abandonment and neglect. This is why it is said about Ali, may God be pleased with him, that the value of each person is what they excel in, meaning that their craft is their value, or the value of their work, which is their livelihood. Additionally, there is another secret here. The state is the one that requires crafts and their mastery, as it is the one that supports their market and directs students towards them. What the state does not require, but is sought by others in the city, is not of its proportion, because the state is the greatest market, where everything is traded, and both the little and the much are on the same scale. What is traded from it is necessarily in the majority, and although the common people may seek a craft, their demand is not general, nor is their enthusiasm substantial. And God, the exalted and almighty, is capable of whatever he wills. Chapter 20. On how cities, when nearing ruin, lose their crafts. This is because we have explained that crafts are only refined when there is a need for them and their demand increases. When the conditions of the city weaken and it begins to decline in its population and prosperity, luxury diminishes, and people revert to focusing on their essential needs, the crafts associated with luxury decrease. This is because their owners can no longer sustain their livelihoods through them, so they turn to other means or die without leaving successors. Thus, the practice of those crafts disappears entirely, just as the artisans, goldsmiths, scribes and copyists, and others of their kind, vanish due to the needs of luxury. Crafts continue to diminish until they fade away, and God is the Creator, the all-knowing, and he is exalted and glorified. Chapter 21. On how the Arabs are the farthest people from crafts. The reason for this is that they are more entrenched in nomadism and further from urban civilization and what it entails in terms of crafts and others. The non-Arabs from the East and the Christian nations across the Roman Sea are the most established in urban civilization because they are more entrenched in urban life and further from nomadism and its lifestyle. Indeed, the camels that helped the Arabs in their wildness and in the wilderness and their deep connection to nomadism are largely absent from them, as are the pastures and the sands prepared for their breeding. Therefore, we find that the homelands of the Arabs and what they possessed in Islam have few crafts in general, to the extent that they are brought in from another region. Look at the lands of the non-Arabs, from China, India, the land of the Turks, and the Christian nations, how they have greatly increased in crafts, and how nations have brought them from there. The non-Arabs of the Maghreb, like the Berbers, are similar to the Arabs in this regard, due to their deep-rootedness in nomadism for many years. This is evidenced by the scarcity of cities in their regions, as we have mentioned. In Morocco, crafts are therefore few and not firmly established, particularly in the weaving of wool and the tanning and beading of leather. When they were brought in, they reached significant levels due to the widespread need for them and the fact that these two are the main goods in their region, given their state of nomadism. As for the East, crafts have been firmly established there since the time of the ancient nations such as the Persians, Nabateans, Egyptians, Israelites, Greeks, and Romans for long periods, which solidified their conditions of civilization. Among these are the crafts, as we have mentioned, which have not been erased. As for Yemen, Bahrain, Oman, and the Arabian Peninsula, although they were ruled by the Arabs, they have exchanged control for thousands of years among many nations. They established their cities and towns and reached the pinnacle of civilization and luxury, like the tribes of Ad, Thamud, the giants, and Himyar after them. And the followers and the tribes, the duration of the kingdom and civilization was prolonged, and its characteristics became firmly established, and crafts flourished and took root, so they did not perish as the state did, as we have mentioned. They remained renewed until now. This was specific to the homeland, such as the craft of weaving, and the threads, and what is refined around the garments and silk in it. And God is the inheritor of the earth and all that is upon it, and he is the best of inheritors. Chapter 22. On those who have acquired mastery in a craft, for it is rare for them to excel in another mastery afterward. An example of this is the tailor. If he masters the skill of tailoring and it becomes firmly established in him, he will not excel in the skill of carpentry or construction, unless the first skill has not yet been firmly established and its characteristics have not taken root. The reason for this is that skills are attributes of the soul and colours, and they cannot coexist simultaneously. Those who are naturally inclined are more receptive to acquiring skills and are better prepared to attain them. If the soul becomes coloured by another skill and deviates from its natural state, its readiness for the skill that has taken root weakens, making it less capable of accepting another skill. This is evident and supported by existence. It is rare to find a craftsman who masters one craft and then masters another, to the same degree of proficiency in both. Even among scholars who possess intellectual mastery, they are in this situation. Those who acquire mastery in one field of knowledge and excel in it rarely achieve mastery in another field at the same level. Rather, they tend to fall short in it if they pursue it, except in rare cases. This is based on what we have mentioned regarding readiness and the colouring of the soul by the skill that has been acquired. And God, the exalted and almighty, knows best, and success is with him alone. Chapter 23. The reference to the mothers of crafts. Know that the crafts in the human species are many due to the numerous activities involved in civilization. They are such that they defy enumeration and cannot be counted. However, among them, there are those that are essential for civilization or noble in their nature, and we will specifically mention them while leaving out the rest. As for the essential ones, they are agriculture, construction, tailoring, carpentry, and weaving. And as for those noble in their nature, they include midwifery, writing, bookbinding, singing, and medicine. Midwifery is essential for civilization and is a common necessity, as it ensures the life of the newborn and often completes it. Its subject, nonetheless, is the newborns and their mothers. As for medicine, it is the preservation of human health and the prevention of disease, and it branches from the science of nature, with its subject being the human body. As for writing and what follows it from the art of calligraphy, it preserves a person's needs and restrains them from forgetfulness, conveying the inner thoughts to the distant absent and immortalizing the results of ideas and sciences in writings, elevating the status of existence for meanings. As for singing, it is the arrangement of sounds and a manifestation of their beauty to the ears. All three of these crafts invite interaction with the great kings in their private gatherings and social councils, thus holding a dignity that others do not possess. As for other crafts, they are generally subordinate and less esteemed. This may vary depending on different purposes and motivations, and God knows best what is right. Chapter 24. On the craft of agriculture. This industry is the fruit of taking food and grains by cultivating the land for their planting, treating their plants, and ensuring they are watered and nurtured until they reach maturity, then harvesting their ears and extracting the grains from their husks, and firmly establishing the work for that. It involves obtaining its causes and motivations. It is the oldest of industries, as it provides the sustenance that is often essential for human life, as one can exist without food. For this reason, this industry is specific to nomads, as we have established that it is older than that of the settled people, and thus this industry is nomadic and cannot be sustained by the settled people, who do not know it because all their conditions are secondary to nomadism, so their industries are secondary to its industries and dependent on them. And God, the exalted and almighty, establishes the servants according to his will. Chapter 25. On construction industry. This industry is the first of the urban construction crafts and the oldest, and it involves the knowledge of working in the construction of houses and shelters for the protection and refuge of bodies in cities. This is because when a person is created with the ability to think about the consequences of his conditions, he must consider what will protect him from harm caused by heat and cold, such as building houses surrounded by roofs and walls on all sides. People differ in this intellectual inclination. Some are moderate in it, taking it up moderately, while others, such as the nomads, tend to avoid such constructions due to their limited understanding of human crafts, opting instead for caves and natural shelters without any treatment. Then, the moderates who build houses for shelter may multiply in a single area to the point where they do not recognize each other, fearing nighttime encounters, which necessitates the preservation of their community through the management of water or walls surrounding them, thus forming a single city and a unified settlement, governed internally to protect each other. And they may need to seek refuge and build fortifications for themselves and those under their care, similar to kings and their kind, such as princes and leaders of tribes. The conditions of construction vary in each city, according to what they recognize and agree upon, and according to the temperament of their heir and their differing states of wealth and poverty. Likewise, the situation of the people within a single city varies. Some build palaces and large markets that include several houses and spacious rooms due to the abundance of their children, servants, and dependents, establishing their walls with stones and binding them with lime, enhancing them with colours and plaster, and they exaggerate in all of this with decoration and embellishment to showcase their wealth and care for their shelter. They also prepare storages and granaries for their provisions and stables for their mounts, if they are among the military, and have many followers and attendants, like princes and their kind. Others build small houses for themselves and their families, not seeking beyond that due to their limited circumstances and their reliance on the natural shelter for humans. Between these, there are countless ranks, and this craft may also be needed when establishing kings and the people of states in great cities and elevated structures, where they strive for precision in arrangements and height of buildings, with the craft reaching its peak. This industry is what provides the motives for all of this, and it is most prevalent in the temperate regions of the Fourth and its surroundings, as the inclined regions have no construction. They only make houses from reeds and clay, or take refuge in caves and hollows. The people of this craft vary in their skills. Some are knowledgeable and skilled, while others are lacking. Then it varies in many types, including construction with dressed stones or bricks, where walls are built by sticking them together with mud and lime, which bond together as if they were one body. There is also construction with earth, especially where walls are made with 2 wooden planks of varying lengths and widths, depending on customary measurements. The average size is 4 arms in length and 2 in width, set on a foundation, and what is placed between them is determined by the builder according to the width of the foundation. Wooden arms are connected between them, tied with ropes and plaster. The remaining 2 sides of that space are closed with 2 smaller planks, and then earth mixed with lime is placed inside, compacted with prepared tools until it is well compacted and the parts mix with the lime. Then, earth is added a second and third time until that space between the planks is filled, with the parts of lime and earth intermingled, forming a single body. The planks are then re-erected in the same manner and compacted until completed, and all the planks are arranged in a line, one above the other, until the entire wall is organized, bonded as if it were a single piece, and it is called the tabia, and its maker is called the tabab. One of the crafts of construction is also to coat the walls with lime after it has been mixed with water and fermented for a week or 2, depending on how balanced its temperament becomes, avoiding excessive heat that spoils the bonding. Once it reaches a satisfactory state, it is applied to the top of the wall until it bonds. Another aspect of construction is the creation of the ceiling, by laying well-crafted or simple wooden beams across the walls of the house, and on top of them, boards are also connected with ties, and dirt and lime are poured over them and spread with centers until their parts interlock and bond, and lime is applied on top, as it is on the wall. Among the crafts of construction is also the embellishment and decoration, such as creating 3-dimensional shapes from plaster above the walls, which is mixed with water and then shaped while still slightly wet, forming patterns with iron drills until it retains a luster and beauty. Sometimes, pieces of marble, brick, or ceramics, or even shells or obsidian, are also applied to the walls, separating homogeneous or different parts, and placed in lime in specified ratios and arrangements, making the wall appear to the eye as if it were pieces of miniature gardens. Among other things, the construction of large buildings and reservoirs for water drainage is done after preparing in the houses the marble basins with precise carvings in their centers for the flowing water to the reservoir, which is brought from outside through channels leading to the houses, and similar types of construction. The craftsmen differ in all of this based on their skill and insight, and the city's development increases and expands as they multiply. Sometimes, the rulers refer to these experts regarding what they know better about construction conditions. This is because people in cities, due to the high density in construction, compete even for space and air above and below, and for the use of the exterior of buildings, which may lead to damage to the walls. One neighbor may prevent another from this, unless he has a right to it. They also differ in the rights to pathways and outlets for flowing water and waste discharged into the channels, and some may claim rights over another's wall, height, or channel due to the proximity of neighbours, or one may claim that his neighbour's wall is unstable and at risk of collapsing, necessitating a ruling to demolish it and prevent harm to the neighbour, or may need to divide a house or property between partners in a way that does not lead to corruption in the house or neglect of its utility. Such matters are only clear to those knowledgeable in construction and its conditions, who deduce them from the joints, beams, wood centres, wall inclinations, and their alignment, and the division of residences, according to their positions and utilities, and the drainage of water in channels that are brought and elevated in a way that does not harm the houses and walls it passes through, and so on. They possess all this insight and expertise that others do not have. Moreover, they differ in quality and shortcomings across generations based on the strength of states. We have previously stated that the crafts and their perfection depend on the completeness of civilization and its abundance due to the high demand for them. Therefore, when a state is nomadic in its early stages, it relies on others for construction. This was the case for Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik when he decided to build the mosque in Medina, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and his mosque in the Levant. He sent to the king of the Romans in Constantinople for skilled labourers in construction, and he sent him those who fulfilled his purpose for those mosques. The owner of this craft may know some aspects of engineering, such as levelling walls with weights and directing water by taking elevations, and similar matters, thus requiring insight into some of its issues. Likewise, in lifting heavy weights, as large masses when constructed with large stones exceed the capacity of the labourers to move them to their place on the wall, they resort to multiplying the strength of the rope by inserting it into hooks with holes capable of geometric ratios, making the heavy load lighter when lifted, achieving the desired result without cost. This is only accomplished through known geometric principles that are circulated among people, and it is with such principles that the existing structures of this era, believed to be from the era of ignorance, were built. Their bodies were proportionate in physical size, but that was not the case. It was achieved through the engineering tricks as we mentioned. Understand this. And God creates what he wills. Exalted be he. Chapter 26. On the craft of carpentry. This industry is one of the necessities of civilization, and its material is wood, as God Almighty has made for humans in every component of creation benefits that fulfill their necessities, and among them is the tree, which has countless benefits known to everyone. One of its benefits is to be used as wood when it dries, and its first benefit is to serve as fuel for their fires in their livelihood, and as sticks for leaning and protection, among other necessities and supports for what they fear may tilt under their burdens. After that, there are other benefits for both the nomadic and settled people. As for the nomads, they use it to make the poles and stakes for their tents, the litters for their women, and the spears, bows, and arrows for their weapons. As for the settled people, they use it for the roofs of their houses, the locks for their doors, and the chairs for their seating. Each of these requires wood as its material, and it does not take its specific form except through craftsmanship. The craft responsible for this, which achieves each of its forms, is carpentry in its various ranks. Its practitioner needs to first detail the wood, either with smaller pieces or planks. Then those virtues are assembled according to the required forms. In all of this, he tries with his craft to prepare those factions in an orderly manner until they become parts of that specific shape. The one responsible for this craft is the carpenter, who is essential in construction. Then, as civilization grows and luxury arrives, and people become refined in what they make of every type of ceiling, door, chair, or container, the refinement in the craft of that and its improvement with peculiarities of craftsmanship becomes a luxury that is not necessary at all, such as the design in doors and chairs, and the preparation of wooden pieces with the craft of carving, which is governed by their smoothing and shaping. Then they are assembled in measured proportions and glued together so that they appear to the eye as unified, with variations in shapes that are proportionate. This is done in everything made of wood, resulting in the most elegant outcomes. Likewise, in all the tools needed made of wood of any kind. This craft may also be needed in the construction of marine vessels, with planks and fastenings, which are geometric bodies made in the shape of a whale, considering its movement in water with its fins and tail, so that shape assists it in confronting water and provides it with a substitute for the animal movement that fish have, which is the movement of the winds. It may also be aided by the movement of projectiles, as in fleets. This industry, from its origin, requires a significant foundation of engineering in all its forms, as bringing images from potential to actualization with precision necessitates knowledge of proportionality in quantities, either generally or specifically, and the proportionality of quantities must refer back to the engineer. Therefore, all the Greek masters of geometry were also masters in this industry. For instance, Euclid, the author of the Elements of Geometry, was a carpenter, and that was how he was known. Similarly, Apollonius, the author of the Conics, and Milos, and others. It is said that the teacher of this industry in creation is Noah, peace be upon him, who built the Ark of Salvation, which was his miracle during the flood. Although this account is possible, meaning that he was a carpenter, there is no evidence from transmission that he was the first to teach or learn it, due to the long time spans. Its meaning, and God knows best, is an indication of the antiquity of carpentry, as there is no reliable account of it before the story of Noah, peace be upon him, making it seem as if he was the first to learn it. Thus, the secrets of crafts in creation are understood, and God, the exalted and almighty, knows best, and to him belongs success. Chapter 27. On the craft of knitting and sewing. Know that the moderates among humans in the meaning of humanity must think of warmth just as they think of clothing. Warmth is achieved by wrapping oneself in fabric to protect against heat and cold. This requires the spinning of yarn until it becomes a single garment, which is weaving and sewing. If they are nomadic, they suffice with that, but if they turn to civilization, they cut that fabric into pieces to form a garment that fits the body with its shape and various parts. They then match those pieces with stitches until it becomes a single garment on the body, and they wear it. The craft that achieves this matching is sewing. These two crafts are essential in civilization due to the needs of humans for comfort. The first is for weaving yarn from wool, linen, and cotton, extending in length and joining in width, and securing that weave with strong joining, resulting in measurable pieces, including woolen coverings for wrapping and cotton, and linen garments for wearing. The second craft is for tailoring fabrics in various shapes and customs, cutting them with scissors into pieces suitable for the body parts, and then sewing those pieces together with precise stitching, whether by joining, patching, or expanding according to the type of craft. This craft is specific to urban civilization, as nomads do not require it and merely wrap their garments. The detailing of garments, their sizing, and sewing them for wear are among the methods and arts of civilization. This is understood in the secret of the prohibition of sewn garments during pilgrimage, as the legitimacy of pilgrimage involves renouncing all worldly attachments and returning to God Almighty as we were created the first time, so that the servant does not attach his heart to anything from the comforts of life, neither to perfume, nor to women, nor to sewn garments, nor to shoes, nor does he engage in hunting or anything from the comforts that have coloured his soul and nature, even though he inevitably loses them with death. It is as if he comes to the gathering place, humbled in heart, sincere to his Lord. His reward, if he completes his sincerity in that, is that he emerges from his sins as on the day his mother bore him. Glory be to you, how compassionate you are with your servants, and how merciful you are to them in seeking to guide them to you. These two crafts are ancient in creation, as warmth is necessary for humans in moderate climates. As for those who are inclined to heat, their people do not need warmth. This is why we are informed that the people of the first region of Sudan are mostly naked. Due to the antiquity of these crafts, the public attributes them to Idris, peace be upon him, who is the oldest of the prophets. They may also attribute them to Hermes, and it may be said that Hermes is Idris. And God, the exalted and almighty, is the all-creative, the all-knowing. Chapter 28. On the art of midwifery. It is a profession known for the work of extracting the human fetus from the mother's womb, with care taken in its removal from her uterus, and preparing the means for that. Then, what is done to rectify it after exiting, as we will mention. It is mostly specific to women, as they are the ones who are exposed to each other's private parts. The one who oversees this is called the midwife. The meaning of giving and receiving is borrowed here, as if women give her the fetus and she receives it. This is because when the fetus completes its creation in the womb and its stages and reaches the limit and duration that God has decreed for its stay, which is generally 9 months, it seeks to exit due to what God has placed in the newborn of the urge for that, and the passage becomes narrow, making it difficult. Sometimes, some parts of the vagina may tear due to pressure, and some of the membranes may detach from their adhesion and fusion with the womb. All of these are pains that intensify the suffering, which is the meaning of labor, so the midwife assists somewhat by pressing on the back and hips and what aligns with the womb from below, corresponding to the action of the one pushing to extract the fetus and facilitating what is difficult for her as much as she can, and as she is guided to recognize the difficulty. Then, when the fetus is delivered, a connection remains between it and the womb through which it was nourished, connected from its navel to its body. This connection is a special organ for the nourishment of the newborn, which the midwife cuts without exceeding the area of the organ and without harming the body or the womb of the mother. Then, she cauterizes the site of the incision, or uses whatever means she sees fit for healing. When the fetus exits through that narrow passage, its bones are still soft and flexible, so the shapes and characteristics of its organs may change due to the proximity of formation and the moisture of the materials. The midwife then manipulates and adjusts it until each organ returns to its natural shape and designated position, restoring its creation to normal. After that, she checks the postpartum woman and assists her with gentle pressure to facilitate the exit of the fetal membranes, as they may be delayed in coming out. At this point, there is a concern that the woman may revert to her natural state before the membranes are fully expelled, as they are remnants that could decay and cause infection in the womb, leading to disaster. The midwife is cautious about this and tries to assist in the expulsion until those membranes that were delayed are released. Then she returns to the newborn, anointing its limbs with oils and necessary substances to tighten them, drying the moisture of the womb, and performing oral care to stimulate its sucking reflex, administering drops to expel the fluids from its brain, and gargling with syrup to clear any blockages from its throat and cavity to prevent adhesion. Then the postpartum woman is treated for the weakness that afflicts her from labor and the pain that her womb endures from separation, as the newborn, if not a natural member, is in a state of formation in the womb that makes it united like a connected member. Thus, the pain of its separation is akin to the pain of cutting. She is also treated for the pain that affects the vagina from the tearing surgery during the pressure of delivery. All these are ailments that we find these midwives are more knowledgeable about their remedies. Likewise, the ailments that the newborn may experience during the breastfeeding period until weaning are better understood by them than by the skilled physician. This is because the human body in that state is only a potential human body. Once weaning occurs, it becomes an actual human body, and thus its need for a physician becomes greater. This profession, as you see, is essential for the flourishing of the human species. The existence of its individuals generally cannot be achieved without it. Some individuals of the species may find themselves in a position to do without this profession, either by God's creation of miracles and breaking the norm, as in the case of the prophets, peace and blessings be upon them, or through inspiration and guidance that the newborn is endowed with, allowing them to exist without this profession. As for the matter of miracles, it has occurred frequently. Among them is what has been narrated, that the prophet, peace be upon him, was born joyful, circumcised, placing his hands on the ground, and gazing at the sky. Likewise, the case of Jesus, in the cradle and others. As for the matter of inspiration, it cannot be denied. If mute animals are distinguished by strange inspirations, like bees and others, what do you think of the human being who is preferred over them, especially one who is honored by God? Then the general inspiration for newborns in their inclination towards the breast is a clear evidence of the necessity of general inspiration for them, the matter of divine care, is greater than can be encompassed. From here, the invalidity of Al-Farabi's opinion and the philosophers of Andalusia can be understood regarding their argument against the extinction of species and the impossibility of the discontinuation of beings, especially in the human species. They said, if individuals were to cease, it would be impossible for them to exist afterward, as it depends on the existence of this craft, which is essential for the being of a human. For if we were to assume a newborn without this craft and its care until weaning, its existence would not be sustained at all. The existence of crafts without thought is impossible, because it is their fruit and subordinate to it. Ibn Sina made an effort to refute this opinion due to his disagreement with it and his belief in the possibility of the extinction of species and the destruction of the world of creation, then its return again due to astronomical necessities and strange conditions that he claims herald in the ages, necessitating the fermentation of a suitable clay for its temperament with appropriate warmth, thus enabling its being as a human, and then a creature is provided for it that inspires it for its upbringing and care until its existence and weaning are complete. He elaborated on this in the treatise he called the Treatise of Hayy ibn Yaqdan. This reasoning is incorrect, even if we agree with him on the extinction of species, but not based on what he argued. His argument is based on attributing actions to the necessary cause. The evidence for the claim of the chosen agent is refuted, and there is no intermediary in the claim of the chosen agent between actions and the eternal ability, and there is no need for this complication. Then, if we concede this for the sake of argument, the utmost that can be derived from it is the necessity of this person being created with inspiration due to its arrangement in the mute animal. What is the necessity that calls for that? And if inspiration is created in the mute animal, what prevents it from being created in the newborn itself, as we stated initially? The creation of inspiration in a person for his own interests is closer than creating it for the interests of others, so both doctrines witness to their own invalidity in their aspects, as I have explained to you, and God knows best. The 29th chapter. On the practice of medicine and its necessity in cities and towns rather than in the desert. This industry is essential in cities and towns due to its known benefits, as its fruit is the preservation of health for the healthy and the prevention of illness for the sick through treatment until they achieve recovery from their ailments. Know that the root of all diseases is indeed from food, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, said in the comprehensive hadith on medicine. The stomach is the house of disease, and abstinence is the head of medicine, and the root of every disease is excess. As for his statement, the stomach is the house of disease, it is clear, and as for his statement, abstinence is the head of medicine, abstinence refers to hunger, which is the avoidance of food. The meaning is that hunger is the great medicine that is the source of remedies, and as for his statement, the root of every disease is excess. The meaning of excess is introducing food upon food in the stomach before the first is fully digested. This explains that God Almighty created man and preserved his life with food, which he uses for eating, and the digestive and nourishing powers work on it until it becomes blood, which is suitable for the parts of the body, both flesh and bone. Then, the growing parts take it, and it transforms into flesh and bone. The meaning of digestion is the cooking of food by innate heat, stage after stage, until it becomes an actual part of the body. Its interpretation is that when food enters the mouth and is chewed by the jaws, the heat of the mouth affects it with a slight cooking and alters its composition somewhat, as you can see in a morsel when you take it as food and then chew it. You notice its composition is different from that of the food. Then it reaches the stomach, where the heat of the stomach cooks it until it becomes chyme, which is the essence of that cooked food, and it sends it to the liver, while the residue settles in the intestines as a heaviness that passes to the exits. Then the heat of the liver cooks that chyme until it becomes pure blood, with a froth from the cooking that is yellowish. From it, dry parts settle that are black, and the innate heat is somewhat insufficient to cook the thicker parts, which is phlegm. Then the liver sends it all into the veins and channels, where the innate cooking takes place, resulting in pure blood, hot and moist vapor that nourishes the animal spirit, and the growing parts take their course in the blood, becoming flesh and then thick bones. Then the body sends out what it does not need from that, various residues of sweat, saliva, mucus, and tears. This is the image of food and its transition from potential to actual as flesh. Then the root of diseases, most of which are fevers, arises. The reason is that the innate heat may weaken in fully digesting it at each stage, leaving that food undigested, often due to an excess of food in the stomach that overwhelms the innate heat, or introducing food into the stomach before the first has been fully digested, causing the innate heat to be overwhelmed and leaving the first in a state or distributing it between them, thus falling short of complete cooking and ripening. The stomach also sends it to the liver, which may not have the strength to ripen it either. Perhaps some of the first food remains in the liver undigested. The liver sends all of that to the veins undigested as it is. When the body takes what it needs appropriately, it sends it along with other residues of sweat, tears, and saliva if it can. It may sometimes be unable to expel much of it, leaving it in the veins, liver, and stomach, increasing over the days. Any moist substance from the mixtures, if not subjected to cooking and ripening, rots, and that undigested food, known as the mixture, decays. All that is rotten has a strange heat in it, which is what is referred to in the human body as fever. You can test this with food if it is left to rot, and in dung if it also rots, how heat emanates from it and takes its course. This is the meaning of fevers in the body, and they are the root of diseases and their origin, as mentioned in the Hadith. The treatment for these fevers is to cut off food from the patient for a specified number of weeks, then they can consume suitable foods until they are fully healed. In a state of health, there is a treatment to protect against this disease and others, as mentioned in the Hadith, and this rot may occur in a specific organ, leading to disease in that organ, and causing wounds in the body, either in the main organs or elsewhere. An organ may become ill, resulting in a disease affecting its associated powers. All of these are the collective diseases, and their origin is mostly from food, and all of this is referred to the physician. The occurrence of these diseases is more prevalent among the people of cities and towns due to their rich living, the abundance of their foods, and their lack of restriction to one type of food and not timing their consumption. They often mix various spices, vegetables, and fruits, both moist and dry, in the name of treatment through cooking, and they do not limit themselves to one type or types. Thus, we might count in a single day 40 different types of cooking from plants and animals, resulting in a strange mixture for the food. This mixture may be unsuitable for the body and its parts. Furthermore, the air in cities is corrupted by the mingling of rotten vapors due to the abundance of waste. The air is invigorating for the spirits and strengthens the hot, innate effect in digestion. Then sports are lacking for the people of the cities, as they are mostly calm and sedentary, and exercise does not take anything from them, nor does it have any effect on them. Thus, the occurrence of diseases is frequent in cities, and to the extent of its occurrence, their need for this practice increases. As for the people of the desert, their food is generally scarce, and hunger prevails over them due to the lack of grains, to the point that it has become a habit for them. It may even be thought to be an innate characteristic due to its persistence. Moreover, their consumption of meat is low or generally absent. The treatment of cooking with spices and fruits calls for the luxury of civilization, which is distant from those who consume their simple foods, far from what mixes with them and aligns their temperament with the body's suitability. As for their climates, they are little affected by decay due to the scarcity of moisture and rot if they are settled, or due to the variation of climates if they are nomadic. Moreover, physical activity is present among them due to the frequent movement in horse riding, hunting, or fulfilling their needs for their own livelihoods, which enhances digestion and improves it, and prevents the mixing of food with food, making their temperaments healthier and further from diseases, thus reducing their need for medicine. For this reason, a doctor is not found in the desert at all. This is only because they are self-sufficient. If there were a need for one, he would be found, as he would have a livelihood among the nomads that would lead him to reside there. The law of God and his servants will not be changed. Chapter 30. On the fact that writing and script are among the human crafts. It is a form of artistic writing that indicates the audible words reflecting what is within the soul. It is the second rank of linguistic indication and is a noble craft, as writing is one of the characteristics that distinguishes humans from animals. Additionally, it reveals what is in the minds and conveys purposes to distant lands, fulfilling needs and alleviating the burden of direct interaction. It also provides access to knowledge and sciences, the records of the ancients, and what they have written of their knowledge and news, making it noble in these aspects and benefits. The transition from potential to actual in humans occurs through education and is proportional to socialization, civilization, and harmony and perfection, which is why the quality of handwriting is better in cities, as it is part of the crafts. And we have presented that this is its nature, and that it is dependent on civilization, which is why we find most Bedouins are illiterate, unable to read or write, and those who do read or write have limited handwriting or their reading is not effective. We find that teaching handwriting in cities outside the limits of civilization is more advanced, better, and easier as a means to master the craft. It is reported to us about Egypt in this era that there are teachers dedicated to teaching handwriting who impart to the learner rules and principles for forming each letter, and they also provide direct instruction on how to write it, thus enhancing the learner's rank in knowledge and skill in education, allowing their ability to develop in the best possible way. This is due to the perfection of crafts and their abundance with the increase of civilization and the expansion of work. The Arabic script had reached a high level of precision, mastery, and quality during the reign of the Tuba, the kings of Himyar, due to their civilization and luxury, known as the Himyarite script. It then transferred to Al-Hira due to the presence of the Al-Mundir family, relatives of the Tuba, who renewed Arab rule in the land of Iraq. However, the script was not as refined among them as it was among the Tuba, due to the limitations between the two states. The civilization and its derivatives, such as crafts and others, were insufficient for that, and from Al-Hira, the people of Ta'if and Quraysh taught him what has been mentioned. It is said that the one who learned writing from Al-Hira is Sufyan ibn Umayyah, and it is said that it is Harb ibn Umayyah, and he learned it from Aslam ibn Sudra. This is a plausible statement, and closer than those who claimed they learned it from Iyad, the people of Iraq, according to their poet. They are a people of Iraq, if they all walk together, with the line and the pen. This is a distant statement, because even if Iyad descended into the land of Iraq, they remained as they were in their nomadic state. The script is from urban crafts. The meaning of the poet's words is that they are closer to writing and penmanship than other Arabs due to their proximity to the cities and their outskirts. Thus, the claim that the people of Hijaz learned it from Al-Hira and that the people of Al-Hira learned it from the Tuba and Himyar is the most fitting of statements. I saw in the book Al-Takmila by Ibn al-Abar, in the introduction to Ibn Farrukh al-Firawani, al-Qasi al-Andalusi, one of the companions of Malik, may God be pleased with him, whose name is Abdullah bin Farrukh bin Abdul Rahman bin Ziyad bin An'am. His father said, I asked Abdullah bin Abbas, O Quraysh, tell me about this Arabic book. Did you write it before God sent Muhammad, peace be upon him, gathering what was gathered and separating what was separated, like the letters Alif, Lam, Mim, and Nun? He said, Yes. I asked, And from whom did you take it? He said, From Harb ibn Umayyah. I said, And from whom did Harb take it? He said, From Abdullah ibn Judan. I said, And from whom did Abdullah ibn Judan take it? He said, From the people of Anbar. I said, And from whom did the people of Anbar take it? He said, From a newcomer who came to them from Yemen. I said, And from whom did that newcomer take it? He said, From the Bays, Ibn al-Qasim, the scribe of the revelation to the prophets Jews, peace be upon him. And he is the one who says, In every year, a year you tell, and an opinion that crosses the wrong path, and death is better than a life in which we are insulted by those who insult, and by the Hamir. What Ibn al-Abar transmitted in the Book of Completion has ended. And at the end, Abu Bakr ibn Abi Hamira narrated to me this in his book, from Abu Bahr ibn al-As, from Abu al-Walid al-Waqshi, from Abu Umar al-Tal'anki, ibn Abi Abdullah ibn Mufarrih. And from his handwriting, I transmitted it from Abu Sa'id ibn Yunus, from Muhammad ibn Musa, ibn al-Nu'man, from Yahya ibn Muhammad ibn Hashish, ibn Umar ibn Ayyub al-Maghafiri, al-Tunis, from Bahlul ibn Ubaidah, al-Hami, from Abdullah ibn Farukh. It has ended. The people of Hamir had a script called Musnad, with separate letters, and they would only allow learning it with their permission. From Hamir, Egypt learned the Arabic script, but they were not proficient in it, as is the case with crafts when they fall into the hands of nomads. They are not precise in their methods, and do not lean towards perfection and embellishment due to the vast difference between nomads and craftsmanship, and the nomads' general self-sufficiency from it. The writing of the Arabs was nomadic, similar to their writing or close to it at this time, or we could say that their writing at this time was a better craft, because these people were closer to civilization and mingling with cities and states. As for Egypt, they were more rooted in nomadism and further from urban life than the people of Yemen, Iraq, and the Levant. Thus, the Arabic script at the beginning of Islam did not reach the utmost level of precision and excellence, nor did it reach the medium level due to the Arabs' state of nomadism and savagery and their distance from crafts. Look at what happened because of this in the way they wrote the Quran, where the companions wrote it in their scripts, which were not precise in excellence, leading to many of their scripts differing from what the principles of script craftsmanship dictated among its people. Then the followers imitated the predecessors in their writing, seeking blessings from what the companions of the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, and the best of creation after him, who received the revelation of the Book of God and his words, had written. Just as in this time, one follows the script of a saint or scholar for blessings and adheres to their writing as a guide or correctness. And how does that compare to the companions in what they wrote, so that this was followed and established as a script, and scholars were alerted to its places? Do not pay attention to what some ignorant people claim, that they were proficient in the craft of writing, and that what is imagined as a contradiction between their scripts and the principles of writing is not as imagined, for all of it has a justification. They say, for example, about the extra alif in La Adabana, that it is a reminder of a slaughter that did not occur, and in the extra ya in Bi'ayid, that it is a reminder of the completeness of divine power, and similar claims that have no basis except pure conjecture. What drove them to this was their belief that it was a form of glorification of the companions, to avoid any notion of deficiency in their lack of proficiency in writing. They assumed that writing was a perfection, and thus glorified them for its excellence, seeking to justify what contradicted proficiency in their writing, which is not correct. Know that writing is not a perfection in their case, as writing is part of the civil crafts of livelihood, as you have seen in what has passed. Perfection in crafts is relative and not absolute, as its deficiency does not reflect on the essence in religion or morals, but rather on the causes of livelihood, and according to civilization and cooperation on it, as it indicates what is in the souls. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was illiterate, and that was a perfection in his case and in relation to his status, due to his nobility and his detachment from practical crafts that are the causes of livelihood and all civilization. Illiteracy is not a perfection in our case, as he was connected to his Lord, while we are cooperating for worldly life, as is the case with all crafts, even conventional sciences, for perfection in his case is his complete detachment from them, unlike us. Then, when kingship came to the Arabs, and they opened cities and ruled kingdoms, and settled in Basra and Kufa, and the state needed writing, they employed the script, sought its craftsmanship, learned it, and circulated it, leading to an improvement in proficiency, and it became established in Kufa and Basra to a level of excellence, although it was still below the utmost level. The Kufic script is well known in this time. Then the Arabs spread across the regions and kingdoms, conquering Africa and Andalusia, and the Abbasids established Baghdad, where the scripts advanced to the utmost as it flourished in urbanization, becoming the house of Islam and the center of the Arab state. The style of writing in Baghdad differed from that in Kufa, leaning towards the excellence of forms, beauty of appearance, and pleasantness of presentation. This difference in the cities persisted until Ali ibn Muqla, the minister, raised its banner in Baghdad. He was followed in this by Ali ibn Hilal, the famous writer known as Ibn al-Bawwab. The foundation for teaching it was established in the 3rd century and beyond. The Baghdad script and its styles diverged from Kufa until they became distinct. Then, the differences increased after those shortcomings due to the expertise of the masters in perfecting its scripts and styles, culminating in later figures like Yaqut and Ali al-Ajami. The lineage of teaching the script was established with them and transferred to Egypt, where the Iraqi method slightly differed and was taught by the Persians there, leading to a distinction from the script of the people of Egypt. The Baghdad script was well known in its form, and it was followed by the African script, which is recognized for its ancient form to this day. It is close to the styles of the Eastern script, and the Umayyad kings of Andalusia distinguished themselves with their conditions of civilization, crafts, and scripts, leading to a distinctive Andalusian script, as is well known today. The sea of civilization and culture flourished in the Islamic states in every region. The kingdom grew, the markets of knowledge thrived, books were copied, and their writing and binding were perfected, filling palaces and royal treasuries with an abundance that had no equal, and the people of various regions competed in this and took pride in it. Then, when the Islamic state system dissolved and that diminished, I gathered and studied the features of Baghdad through the lessons of the Caliphate, so its affairs shifted from writing and literature, and even knowledge, to Egypt and Cairo. Its markets have remained thriving to this day, and there are teachers there who instruct in the letters with established rules regarding their placement and shapes, which are familiar among them. The learner quickly masters the shapes of those letters in those forms, having been well taught and skilled in practice and writing, and he adopts them as scientific laws, resulting in the best possible outcome. As for the people of Andalusia, they dispersed across the regions when the Arab kingdom there faded, followed by the Berbers, and they were overcome by Christian nations, spreading into the Maghreb and Africa from the time of the Lamtuna state to this day. They participated with the people of civilization with their crafts and clung to the state's coattails, so their script prevailed over the African script, overshadowing it, and the script of Kairouan and Mahdia was forgotten with the neglect of their customs and crafts. The scripts of all the people of Africa became aligned with the Andalusian script in Tunisia and its surroundings due to the abundance of Andalusians there at the current time from the east of Andalusia. And there remained a trace in the land of the Jarid of those who did not mix with the scribes of Andalusia, nor were accustomed to being near them. They would go to the king's house in Tunis, and thus the script of the people of Africa became one of the best scripts of the people of Andalusia. However, when the shadow of the Almohad state diminished somewhat, and the affairs of civilization and luxury regressed with the decline of urbanization, the state of the script then deteriorated, its forms corrupted, and the way of education became unknown due to the decay of civilization and the decrease in urbanization. The traces of the Andalusian script remained, testifying to what they had, as we have mentioned that crafts, when rooted in civilization, are difficult to erase. In the state of the Marinids afterward in the far Maghreb, a type of Andalusian script emerged due to their proximity and the fall of those who came from them to Fez, and their use of them throughout the state. The era of the script was forgotten afterward from the seat of kings and their houses, as if it had never been known. Thus, the scripts in Africa and the Maghreb became inclined towards mediocrity, far from quality, and the books, when copied, yielded no benefit to their readers except for hardship and difficulty due to the many corruptions, errors, and changes in the script's forms from quality to the point that they could hardly be read except with great difficulty. What happened to other crafts occurred here as well, due to the decline of civilization and the corruption of states, and God rules. There is no one to overturn his judgment. And the esteemed professor Abu al-Hasan Ali ibn Hilal, the famous Baghdad scribe known as Ibn al-Bawwab, has a poem in the meter of al-Basit on the rhyme of Ra, in which he mentions the craft of calligraphy and its leaders, one of the best written on this subject. I have seen it fit to include it in this book in this section for the benefit of those who wish to learn this craft. And the first of it is, O you who wish to master writing and seek beautiful handwriting and illustration, if your determination in writing is sincere, then aspire to your Lord for facilitation. Prepare a number of pens, each one well crafted to shape the art of writing. And if you intend to write, then measure it with the average standard. Look at its ends, and make its writing precise and prepared, and give its roughness, a balanced form, free from excessive length and brevity. Split its middle so that its writing remains consistent on both sides, avoiding issues of measurement. Once you are certain of all this, then cut it with a complete plan. Do not be tempted to reveal its secret. I am protective of its hidden essence. But in summary, what I say is that it is between distortion and rotation. And cast your ink with smoke, whether with vinegar or pressed sour grapes, and add to it a pinch that has been mixed with the smallest amount of arsenic and camphor. Once it has fermented, turn to the smooth, fine paper that has been prepared, and after cutting, treat it with the right tools to keep it away from fraying and alteration. Then make representation your habit, patiently, for what is hoped for is like the patient. Start with it on the board, removing any burdens that may hinder you from diligence. Do not be ashamed of the mistakes you make in the beginning of representation and the rough drafts, for the matter may be difficult, but will return to ease, and often ease comes after difficulty. Once you achieve what you have hoped for, you will become a master of joy and happiness. Thank your Lord, and follow his pleasure, for indeed, God answers every grateful one. And strive for your hand to write good things that will yield rewards in the abode of deception, for all of a person's actions will meet them tomorrow in the book of their deeds. And know that writing is an expression of speech and words, just as speech and words are an expression of what is in the soul and conscience of meanings, so it is necessary for each of them to be clear in indication. God, the Exalted, said, He created man and taught him expression, which encompasses the expression of all evidence. The perfection of good writing is that its indication is clear, by clearly articulating its humble letters and skillfully placing and drawing each one distinctly from the other, except for what is agreed upon in writing regarding connecting the letters of a single word to one another, aside from the letters that they have agreed to separate, such as the initial alif in the word, as well as the ra, zay, dal, dahad, and others, unlike when they are at the end, and so on until the end. Then, the later writers agreed to connect words with one another, and to omit certain letters known only to them, which are not understood by others. These are the writers of the Sultanic records and the judges' registers, as if they have distinguished themselves with this terminology from others due to the abundance of writing they do, the fame of their writing, and the familiarity of many beneath them with their terminology. If they write this for someone who is not familiar with their terminology, they should refrain from that and strive for clarity as much as they can. Otherwise, it would be akin to foreign script, as both are similar in their lack of common understanding. There is no excuse in this regard, except for the writers of sultanic affairs concerning finances and armies, as they are required to keep that information secret from the public, being among the sultanic secrets that must be concealed. Thus they exaggerate in creating a specific terminology for themselves. It becomes like a cipher. This terminology involves expressing letters with words from the names of perfumes, fruits, birds, and flowers, and creating other shapes different from the familiar letter forms that the communicators agree upon to convey what is in their minds through writing. Sometimes, the writers establish rules based on measures they derive for this purpose to decipher the cipher. There are well-known records among people regarding this, and God is all-knowing, all-wise. Chapter 31. On the craft of papermaking. In the past, there was great care for scientific records and registers in their copying, binding, and correction through narration and verification. The reason for this was the vastness of the state and the consequences of civilization. This has diminished in this era with the decline of the state and the decrease in urbanization, after it had been a vast sea in the Islamic community in Iraq and Andalusia, as it was all a result of urbanization and the expansion of the state and the flourishing markets there. The production of scientific works and records increased, and people were keen to transmit them across regions and eras, leading to their copying and binding. The profession of scribes who assisted in copying, correcting, binding, and other book-related matters emerged, particularly in the great urban centres. Initially, the records were for copying sciences, royal correspondence, land grants, and documents on prepared parchment made from leather due to the abundance of luxury and the scarcity of works at the beginning of the community, as we mentioned. The few royal letters and documents led them to limit themselves to writing on parchment, as a mark of honor for the writings, and a tendency towards accuracy and precision. Then, the sea of authorship and documentation surged, and the correspondence of the Sultan and his documents increased, leading to a shortage of parchment. Al-Fadl ibn Yahya suggested the craft of papermaking, and he wrote royal letters and documents on it. People thereafter adopted it for their royal and scientific writings. The quality of its production reached great heights. Then, the attention of scholars and the ambitions of rulers focused on the organization and correction of scientific records through narration attributed to their authors and compilers, as this was the most important aspect of correction and verification, thus attributing statements to their speakers and legal opinions to the jurists who deduced them. Without the correction of texts by attributing them to their authors, no statement or legal opinion could be correctly attributed to them. This was the situation of scholars and their bearers across ages and regions. The benefit of the science of hadith narration became limited to this, as its greatest fruit was the knowledge of authentic hadiths, their good quality, and their chains of transmission, as well as the weak and fabricated ones. The focus on this became trivial work. The only remaining fruit of narration and engagement with it was in correcting those foundational hadith texts and other jurisprudential books for legal opinions and other scientific records and compilations. The connection of their chains to their authors was necessary for accurate transmission and attribution to them. These practices in the East and Andalusia paved clear paths. Therefore, we find the records copied from that era in their regions to be of the highest quality, precision, and accuracy. Among them, there are ancient originals in the hands of people worldwide that testify to their achievement in this regard. People in various regions continue to transmit them to this day, holding them with great care. However, these practices have largely disappeared in the West and among its people due to the decline of the craft of writing, verification, and narration, resulting from the decrease in urbanization and the nomadic nature of its people. The foundational texts and records are now copied by Berber students using poor handwriting, leading to many errors and misrepresentations, making it difficult for readers to benefit from them, except in rare cases. Additionally, this has led to errors in legal opinions, as most statements attributed are not narrated from the imams of the school, but are received from those records as they are. This was also followed by some of their imams attempting to author works due to their lack of understanding of the craft and the absence of sufficient resources to achieve their goals. In Andalusia, only a hidden revival through erasure and decline remained, as knowledge was nearly cut off entirely from the West, and God is dominant over his affair. We have reached this era where the craft of narration is still present in the East, and the correction of records for those who seek it is easy for those who desire it due to the flourishing markets of knowledge and crafts, as we will mention later. However, the handwriting that remains of quality in copying there is only for the non-Arabs and in their scripts. As for copying in Egypt, it has deteriorated as it has in the West, and even more so. And God, the exalted and almighty, knows best, and may he grant success. Chapter 32. On the art of singing. This industry is the composition of metered poetry by segmenting sounds into known regular ratios, where each sound is marked when segmented, creating a tone. Then, those tones are composed together in familiar ratios, making them pleasant to hear due to that proportion and the quality that arises from those sounds. It has been established in the science of music that sounds are proportional, with one sound being half, another a quarter, another a fifth, and a part of 11 of another, and the difference in these ratios when performed to the ear transitions from simplicity to composition. Not every composition is pleasant to hear. Rather, there are specific compositions that are defined by the scholars of music, as mentioned in their respective places. This composition can also occur in singing melodies by segmenting other sounds from inanimate objects, either by striking or blowing into instruments made for that purpose, which can also be delightful to hear. Among these, in the present time in the Maghreb, there are types such as the flute, which they call shababa, a hollow reed with holes on its sides that are counted, into which one blows to produce sound. The sound emerges from its hollow body through the closure of those holes, and the sound is segmented by placing the fingers of both hands on those holes in a familiar manner to create ratios between the sounds, thus connecting them proportionally, making the hearing delightful due to the proportion we mentioned. There is also a type of flute called zalami, which is a carved reed with hollow sides made of wood, not rounded, to allow it to fit into two separate pieces, also with counted holes, into which one blows using a small reed that connects, allowing the breath to pass through it, producing a sharp tone where the segmentation of sounds occurs from those holes with the fingers, similar to what happens with the shababa. One of the best wind instruments of this time is the trumpet, which is a hollow brass horn about the length of an arm. It widens so that its opening is less than the size of a hand, shaped like a pen tip. One blows into it with a small reed that directs the air from the mouth into it, producing a thick, resonant sound, and it also has counted holes. The tone is segmented similarly with the fingers in proportion, making it delightful. There are also string instruments, all of which are hollow, either shaped like a piece of a sphere, such as the marbat and rebab, or square-shaped like the kanun, where the strings are placed on their bases, tightened at one end to pegs that allow for the tightening and loosening of the strings as needed. The strings are then struck either with another stick or with a string stretched between the ends of a bow that passes over them after being coated with wax and resin. The sound is segmented by lightly moving the hand in passing or shifting from one string to another. The left hand, in all string instruments, also places its fingers on the ends of the strings while they are struck or rubbed with the string, producing proportionate and delightful sounds. Striking can also occur on drums with rods or on sticks against each other in a suitable rhythm, resulting in a pleasant sound. To clarify the reason for the pleasure arising from singing, it is established that pleasure, as determined in its place, is the perception of what is suitable and tangible, which is perceived in a certain manner. If it is suitable for the perceiver and harmonious, it is delightful. If it is contrary to it, it is painful. The suitable tastes are those that match the quality of the sense of taste in their temperament, and likewise, the suitable tactile sensations and sense are those that match the temperament of the heart spirit, as it is the perceiver, and the sense leads to it. This is why fragrant herbs and aromatic flowers have the best scent and are most suitable for the spirit due to the predominance of heat in them, which is the temperament of the heart spirit. As for what is seen and heard, the suitable in them is the proportion of forms and qualities, making them more suitable for the soul and more harmonious with it. If the creator is proportionate in its forms and designs according to its material, such that it does not deviate from what its specific material necessitates in terms of perfect suitability and arrangement, that is the meaning of beauty and goodness in every perceivable thing. At that point, it becomes suitable for the perceiving soul, which delights in perceiving its suitability. This is why you find passionate lovers expressing the utmost of their love and passion through the mingling of their souls with the soul of the beloved. In this lies a secret understood by those who are of its kind, which is the unity of the origin, and if you observe and contemplate what is other than you will see a unity in the beginning. This is evidenced by the unity in existence, as philosophers say. You desire to merge with what you observe in perfection to unite with it, and the soul then seeks to transcend illusion to the truth, which is the unity of the origin and existence. Since the most suitable things for humans, and the closest to perceiving perfection in their proportional subject, is its human form, their perception of beauty and goodness, in its designs and sounds, is among the perceptions that are closest to their nature, leading every person to praise the beauty of what is seen or heard according to their nature. The beauty in what is heard is that the sounds are proportionate, not discordant. Sounds have qualities of whispering and loudness, softness and harshness, and other characteristics. The proportion in them is what gives them beauty. Firstly, the sound should not abruptly extend to its length, but gradually. Then it should return likewise, and so on to the example. But there must be a medium of difference between the two sounds. Consider how the masters of language begin compositions from discordant or closely related letters, as it is of its kind. Secondly, their proportion in parts, as mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, should extend from the sound to half of it, or a third, or a part of it, according to what is proportionate as defined by the masters of the craft. If the sounds are proportionate in qualities as mentioned by the scholars of that craft, they will be harmonious and delightful. Among this proportion is what is simple, and many people are naturally inclined towards it without needing teaching or craft, as we find those naturally inclined to poetic meters and the marking of dance and similar things. The common people call this ability mudar. Many reciters of this kind recite the Quran, excelling in the melodies of their voices as if they were flutes, delighting in the beauty of their flow and the harmony of their tones. Among this proportion is what arises from composition, and not everyone is equal in understanding it, nor do all natures agree with their owner in practicing it once learned. This is the composition that the science of music is responsible for, as we will explain later when discussing the sciences. Malik, may God have mercy on him, denied the recitation with melody, while Shafi'i, may God be pleased with him, permitted it. The intention is not the composition of industrial music, for there should be no disagreement regarding its prohibition, as the art of singing is entirely different from the Quran in every aspect, because recitation and performance require a certain amount of sound to ensure the articulation of letters, not in terms of following the movements in their places, and the extent of elongation according to those who extend or shorten it, and similar matters. Composition also requires a certain amount of sound that cannot be completed without it due to the proportion we mentioned in the essence of composition, and considering one may compromise the other if they conflict. The precedence of narration is necessary to avoid altering the transmitted narration in the Quran, so the combination of composition and the considered performance in the Quran cannot occur in any way. Rather, their intention is the simple composition that the naturally inclined person finds by instinct, as we have mentioned, repeating their sounds in a manner proportionate to what is understood by the knowledgeable in singing and others. This should not be done in any way, as Malik said. This is the point of contention. It seems that the Quran is exalted above all this, as the Imam, may God have mercy on him, believed, because the Quran is a place of humility in the remembrance of death and what follows, and it is not a place of delight in perceiving the beauty of sounds. This was also the manner of the companions, may God be pleased with them, as in their reports. As for his saying, peace be upon him, he has been given a flute from the flutes of the family of David. The intention is not repetition and composition, but rather the beauty of the voice and the performance of recitation, and the clarity in the articulation of letters and their pronunciation. Now that we have mentioned the meaning of singing, know that it occurs in civilization when it becomes abundant and exceeds the necessary limits to the needs, then to the perfection, and they diversify in it, leading to this industry, for it is only sought by those who have fulfilled all their necessary and important needs of livelihood and home, and it is only sought by those who are free from all their other conditions, indulging in the pleasures of delights. There was, in the time of the Persians before the religion, a vast sea of it in their cities and towns. Their kings would adopt it and be fond of it, to the extent that the kings of Persia had an interest in the people of this industry, and they had a place in their state, attending their gatherings and singing in them. This is the state of the Persians in every horizon of theirs at this time and in one of their kingdoms. As for the Arabs, they initially had the art of poetry, composing words into equal parts in proportion to each other in the number of their moving and stationary letters. They would separate the words in those parts in a manner such that each part independently conveys meaning without referring to the other. They call it a bait, house. Thus, the nature harmonizes with the division first, then the parts become proportionate in the segments and beginnings, and then by conveying the intended meaning and applying the words to it. They became accustomed to it, distinguishing it from their speech with a line of honor that is not found in others due to its specificity. They made it a repository for their news, judgments, and honors, and a standard for their talents in capturing meanings and mastering styles. They continued in this manner. This proportion, which arises from the parts and the moving and stationary letters, is a drop from the ocean of sound proportions, as is known in the books of music. However, they were not aware of anything else, because at that time they had not adopted any science, nor did they know any craft. Their nomadic lifestyle predominated. Then, the guides among them would sing while leading their camels, and the young men would sing in the open spaces of their solitude, returning the sounds and humming. They would call humming when it was with poetry singing, and when it was with exaltation or a type of recitation, they would call it a change, using the Arabic letters gain and ba. Abu Ishaq al-Zajjaj explained it as a reminder of the past, which is the eternal, meaning the conditions of the afterlife. They would sometimes find a simple harmony in their singing between melodies, as mentioned by Ibn Rashik at the end of the book Al-Umdah and others. They would call it sanad. Most of what they did was in the light rhythm that one dances to and walks with the drum and flute, causing excitement and lightness of spirit. They would call this commotion, and all this simplicity of melodies is among the earliest of them. And it is not far-fetched that natures would be aware of it without teaching, as is the case with all simple crafts. This was the state of the Arabs in their nomadic and pre-Islamic times. When Islam came, and they took over the kingdoms of the world, gaining the Persian authority and overcoming them, they were in a state of nomadism and rawness, as known to them, with the vigor of religion and its strictness in abandoning idle matters that are not beneficial in religion or livelihood. So they somewhat abandoned that. The only delight for them was the echoing of recitation and the humming of poetry, which was their habit and way. When luxury came to them, and they were overwhelmed by the comforts gained from the spoils of nations, they turned to the pleasures of life and the delicacy of leisure, and the singers separated from the Persians and Romans, coming to the Hijaz, becoming clients of the Arabs, and all sang with the lyres, tambourines, and flutes. The Arabs heard their melodies and composed their poetry to them. In Medina, there appeared the Persian singer Nashit and Tawis and Saib ibn Jabir, the client of Ubaidullah ibn Ja'far, who heard the poetry of the Arabs and composed it well, gaining fame. Then, Mabad learned from them and imitated them, as did Ibn Sharba and others. The art of singing continued to develop until it reached its peak during the days of the Abbasids, with Ibrahim ibn al-Mahdi, Ibrahim al-Mawzili, his son Ishaq, and his son Hamad. Much of this in their state in Baghdad followed the news after it, and in their gatherings at this time, indulging in amusement and play, and dance instruments were made in clothing and rods, and poetry was sung to them. A separate category was established, and other instruments for dancing were made, called karaj, which are wooden horse figures suspended from the ends of garments worn by women, mimicking riding horses, running and fleeing, and engaging in similar games prepared for feasts, weddings, and festive days, and leisure gatherings. This became abundant in Baghdad and the cities of Iraq, spreading from there to others. Among the Mawzilians was a boy named Ziryab, who learned singing from them and excelled, leading him to the Maghreb out of jealousy, where he joined the rule of Hakam ibn Hisham ibn Abdul Rahman al-Dakhil, the Prince of Andalusia. He greatly honored him, preparing for his meeting and bestowing upon him rewards, lands, and stipends, and he placed him in a position among his state and companions. He inherited in Andalusia from the art of singing what was passed down to the times of the factions. It flourished in Seville, and after its initial glory, it spread to the lands of the enemy in Africa and the Maghreb. It divided among its cities, and now there is a longing for it as its civilization declines and its states diminish. This industry is the last to emerge in civilization among the crafts because it is a luxury without a function other than leisure and joy. It is also the first to cease in civilization when it deteriorates and declines. And God knows best. Chapter 33. On how crafts grant their owner intellect, especially writing and arithmetic. We mentioned in the book that the rational soul of man exists in him potentially. The transition from potentiality to actuality occurs through the renewal of knowledge and perceptions from the senses first, and then what is acquired thereafter through theoretical potential until it becomes actual perception and pure intellect, thus becoming a spiritual essence, completing its existence. Therefore, it is necessary that every type of knowledge and contemplation provides it with a unique intellect, and crafts always yield a scientific law derived from that faculty. This is why experience in practical skills provides intellect, and complete civilization provides intellect because it is composed of crafts related to managing the household, interacting with fellow beings, acquiring manners in their company, and then attending to religious matters and considering their manners and conditions. All of these are laws that organize sciences, resulting in an increase in intellect. Writing, among the crafts, is the most beneficial for this because it encompasses knowledge and contemplation, unlike other crafts. The explanation is that in writing, there is a transition from written letters to verbal words in imagination, and from verbal words in imagination to the meanings within the soul. Thus it continually transitions from one evidence to another, as long as it is intertwined with writing, and the soul becomes accustomed to this. It acquires the faculty of transitioning from evidence to signifieds, which is the meaning of rational contemplation that gains unknown sciences, thus acquiring a faculty of understanding that increases intellect and provides sharpness and cleverness in matters due to the habituation to that transition. This is why Khosrow, in his book, when he saw them with that cleverness and sharpness, said, "His court, what demons and madness." They said, and this is the origin of the term court for the people of writing, and it is related to accounting, for in the craft of accounting, there is a type of manipulation of quantities through addition and subtraction that requires much reasoning, thus remaining accustomed to reasoning and contemplation, which is the meaning of intellect. And God brought you forth from the wombs of your mothers knowing nothing, and he made for you hearing, sight, and hearts. Little do you give thanks.